videos.
Roxana ma'am is there. She's joining.
Okay.
Ma'am, I'm taking Pam Rajput, ma'am.
Yeah. Lily Bhushan ma'am is also there. Good morning, madam. Yeah. Hi, Roxana.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah. So Professor Pam Rajput has also joined now. So very good. So what's the time in your country?
It's 7:30 in the morning.
In the morning. Okay.
So it's not very early. It's all right.
Yeah.
Good morning, Roxana ma'am.
Good morning.
Okay. Yeah. Nice.
Good morning, Vibhuti ma'am.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Pratibha madam. Yes.
Good morning.
Yeah. Roxana madam has also joined.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Good morning, Pam ma'am. Pam ma'am is also there.
Good morning. Yeah, Lily ma'am has joined. Yeah, but I don't see her name.
Good morning, Vibhuti.
प्राम जी बहुत अच्छा लगा आपको सुबह सुबह देख के आप आए बाहर आए
ये बाहर तो बहुत मायने रखती है.
So meet Dr. Lily Bhushan, principal of the college, and also Dr. Roxana from Romania.
Yeah.
She has been our very good friends, and she has been throughout the year. She has been on several platforms.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah.
Ma'am, I would like to say a few things. Dr. Rajput, you may not remember me, but I remember you very well because you were with me in one of the NAC peer team committees at, I think, Belgaum. 3-4 years.
I very much see. After seeing her face, I very much
remember you or not. Once we met at Delhi India International Center also, ma'am. Do you remember me?
Yes, very much now. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you so much. So
it's a pleasure to be.
Yeah. So when I came to know that you are joining us for the conference, I told my conference convener that madam को तो हम ही introduce करेंगे. Let it be my privilege because I have known her very closely.
Yeah.
So I said उनका तो introduction हम ही देंगे.
I am honored, Professor Bhushan. I am honored.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So it's time. Should we start?
Yeah.
Vaishali ma'am, we will start. Sir, VC sir has joined.
Yes, VC sir has joined. I request if we can switch on his video.
Excuse sir.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, madam.
Yeah, Vibhuti. Yeah.
Yes, Principal ma'am, with your due permission, shall we start?
Yes, go ahead.
Women, the most marvelous creation of God. In fact, she is not just a creation, but a creator herself. Women carries all the power inside. A woman has always stood the test of time, whether it be history or a pandemic like COVID-19. Women holds the power to transfigure the world. She already has a voice. She just need to feel empowered, and to augment her empowerment, we all have gathered here. A very lovely and splendid morning to one and all present here. On behalf of Women Development and Empowerment Cell of Shroff College of Arts and Commerce, I heartily welcome all of you to the one-day international conference, a noble initiative to contribute in women empowerment, with the theme, Looking at the Pandemic Through Gender Lens. Jointly organized by K.A. Shroff College of Arts and Commerce, Mahila Arthik Vikas Mahamandal, and Beti Bachao Abhiyan, an initiative of Departments of Students Development, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. All good things begin with the blessings of Goddess Saraswati. So we begin with Saraswati Vandana. It is indeed a great honor for me to take our distinguished dignitaries and participants who are attending this conference from different parts of the world to the virtual tour of our renowned institute, which is providing quality education since last 8 decades. I now request Assistant Professor Mr. Vikas to kindly play the video of virtual tour.
Janvi, you are on mute.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing the video. All our events are blessed and guided by our visionary leader, our beloved principal, Dr. Lily Bhushan, a lady who has always worked without fear or favor and has served this institute since last 3 decades with immense dedication and enthusiasm. Ma'am has completed her doctorate in women's studies and is the recipient of many prestigious awards like Nari Ratna Samman by National Human Rights Commission. Ma'am holds a strong determination for women empowerment and has also presented many papers on the same. Ma'am had presented a research paper titled "The Hand That Rocks the Cradle Empowers the Self. Women Empowerment 𝗟𝗲𝗄𝗏𝗏𝗏 at the International Conference at Singapore. In fact, under Ma'am's leadership, our college received the Best College Award from Mumbai University. Principal Ma'am, we are really grateful for your presence. I now request Ma'am to present the welcome address.
Thank you, Janvi. Good morning and a very safe, secure and precious day today. And I welcome all and one and all present here today for this one-day international conference looking at the pandemic through gender lens. On behalf of our management, the Kandivali Education Society, and on behalf of all the teaching and the non-teaching staff, it gives me immense pleasure to welcome our honored guests. Indeed, a matter of pride to have Dr. 𝗵𝗃𝗃𝗏𝗏, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Shivaji University, Kolhapur, Maharashtra, as the chief guest of today's conference. Welcome, sir, and congratulations to you for steering your university towards A++ grade under NAC accreditation. What a remarkable feat, sir. I'm sure you'll be the guiding light for the rest of us. I welcome Madam Jyoti Thackeray, Chairperson, Mahila Arthik Vikas Mahamandal, MAVIM, Government of Maharashtra. Having Dr. Pam Rajput amongst us, Professor Emeritus, Punjab University, Chandigarh, is a dream come true for all of us at Shroff College, Mumbai. We also welcome Madam Kamla Basi, feminist, writer and activist, and I'm sure we all remember her as a present face on a session with Amir Khan in the program 𝗪𝗏𝗪𝗏𝗪𝗏𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 own Dr. Vibhuti Patel, friend, philosopher, and guide. Presence of international guests and speakers has added a different flavor to our conference. And on behalf of Shroff College, Mumbai, we welcome Dr. Elizabeth Broderick from Australia, Dr. Roxana from University of Bucharest, Romania, Dr. Mariam Siddat Khan from University of South Africa, Dr. Chitra Sinha, formerly from Uppsala University, Sweden, and currently with 𝗁𝗂𝗍𝗔 Foundation, Bahrain. Dr. 𝗟𝗢𝗢𝗐𝗏 from Goa University, Madam Pratima Pawar and Pratibha Patil from Shivaji University, Kolhapur. We are privileged to have you amongst us. Once again, a very hearty welcome to all. I am extremely proud of our WDEC cell of Shroff College and the Department of Students Development, Shivaji University, who have come together for this very contemporary topic of today's conference, looking at the pandemic through gender lens. We are the generation equality, and this pandemic has thrown open many challenges, especially for women who are bearing the brunt in this pandemic. Applying a gender lens in designing fiscal and social assistance program is crucial for more prosperous, equal, inclusive, and resilient society. Of 93 research papers in today's conference from all over the country, from Jammu Kashmir to Kanyakumari, and from Saurashtra University to the Far East Assam. I am sure the brainstorming sessions and interactions which will take place today will be highly fruitful, and the takeaways from this conference will be memorable one. Finally, my heart fills with pride to welcome the 4 international student delegates who are presenting papers today from Philippines, Canada and Australia, and also 20 student delegates from India. Dear students, stay blessed and may you rise and shine. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your kind words. I would take this opportunity of acknowledging the gracious presence of Dr. 𝗶𝗃𝗄𝗏, Pro Vice Chancellor, Shivaji University, Dr. 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Shroff College of Arts and Commerce, Dr. 𝗟𝗢𝗢𝗏, Director, Students Development, Shivaji University, Dr. Pratibha Desai, Coordinator, Beti Bachao Abhiyan, Department of Sociology, Shivaji University, Dr. Vanitha Isaimani, Chairperson, WDEC, Shroff College of Arts and Commerce. I heartily welcome all of you to our esteemed conference. And a very special mention to Assistant Professor Ms. 𝗏𝗁𝗍𝗍, the convener and the driving force behind today's conference. In the language of our principal, ma'am, she's a go-getter. Her tireless efforts to rope in our today's dignitaries has made this conference possible. We are very honored to have amongst us a very erudite and knowledgeable dignitary, Professor Dr. 𝗥𝗲𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏, Vice Chancellor, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. I would take the privilege of introducing Sir. Professor Dr. 𝗥𝗲𝗀𝗏𝗏 completed his graduation from Vivekanand College, Kolhapur, and post-graduation from Department of Statistics, Shivaji University, Kolhapur. Sir joined Department of Statistics as a CSIR Research Fellow, where subsequently he became head of the department. Sir is a very knowledgeable academician with a teaching experience of 30 years and research experience of 33 years. Sir has 75 plus national and international research publications to his credit, which is really inspiring achievement, sir. He has completed 5 research projects funded by various national funding agencies. 14 students have successfully completed their PhD under his able guidance. Sir holds a keen interest in learning and disseminating the same, and hence, Sir has attended over 50 national and international conferences and has organized 6 himself. In this regard, Sir has traveled extensively in India and abroad for academic purpose and has created research collaborations within and outside the country. Like his academic concerns, his administrative experience is also varied, and it includes his positions as the officiating registrar of Shivaji University, Kolhapur for the period of 2 years, as the institutional coordinator of RUSA, coordinator of University Industry Interaction Cell, coordinator of UGC SAP, coordinator of innovative programs, and many more. He has worked on various bodies of the university. Sir is an eminent speaker and has delivered talks and speeches in many conferences, workshops, refresher and orientation courses, both nationally and internationally. Sir is also a member of many professional bodies, and considering his substantial academic and administrative contribution, he was awarded as the best teacher by Shivaji University, Kolhapur in 2011. Sir, we are really privileged to have you with us. I now request Shirke sir to guide the audience with his intellectual words. Respected sir.
Thank you, Janvi, for kind introduction. Good morning to everyone. In fact, it is pleasure and privilege to be with all of you this morning on the occasion of inauguration ceremony of one-day international conference on looking at the pandemic through gender lens, organized by Women Development Cell of KES B.K. Shroff College of Arts and M.S. Shroff College of Commerce, Kandivali, Mumbai, Maharashtra. With the auspicious collaboration with Mahila Arthik Vikas Mahamandal, Beti Bachao Abhiyan and Department of Student Development of Shivaji University, I take this opportunity as a member of collaborating university to welcome you all. I'm very happy to see the eminent personalities present in this particular ceremony and for this conference. Dr. Pam Madam, who is a former chair for Government of India High-Level Committee on Status of Women in India, former faculty member of Punjab University. Srimati Jyoti Thakre, chairperson of Mahila Arthik Vikas Mahamandal. We have Madam 𝗥𝗲𝗀𝗍𝗏, who is a feminist writer and activist. We also have Dr. 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏𝗏 Patel, from former professor, Tata Institute of Social Sciences and SNDT Women's University. We also have eminent speakers and panelists from various countries like Dr. Roxana. From various countries, we have this panelist. We also have this morning my colleagues, Professor P.S. Patil, Pro Vice Chancellor of Shivaji University, Dr. 𝗟𝗢𝗢𝗄𝗏, Director of Student Development, Dr. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Desai, who is very actively organizing number of programs under the umbrella of Beti Bachao Abhiyan, and this is one of such programs. And on the top of this, the organizing committee chairperson and the principal, dynamic principal, I could see from her speech, Dr. Lily Bhushan. I'm very much impressed to see your video clip and could get a flavor of number of activities for overall development of students in your college. In fact, you are blessed with a good number of faculty and bright students. I could see that their performance, not in the academics, but all other activities also. And that's why I think you have been awarded an excellent grade by NAAC 3.27 CGPA with A grade, as well as you have been granted autonomous status also by University Grants Commission for the next 10 years. On behalf of Shivaji University, I wish you every success in every activity that you are going to organize as an autonomous institute for the next 10 years, and wish that your college gets even higher grades in the near future. One of such activities being organized in this critical situation, I would say. And in fact, this particular conference is very apt in this particular critical situation. The entire globe has been suffering, passing through very tough time since last 13 to 14 months, I can say, maybe more than that. There is no single sector which does not have adverse effect due to this pandemic. May it be education, in which we are part and parcel of that system. May it be all kinds of business, industries, health units, tourism, transport, you name any sector, they are suffering from very critical time due to this pandemic. And this phenomena is not a local, neither it is a local nor national, it is in fact a global issue. Every one of us is really struggling to come out of this particular situation. but show must go on. In spite of such critical time, intellectuals have to come together, have a brainstorming session, share their views, listen to others, and come to certain common conclusion for the betterment of life, even in this critical situation. I think this conference has got the very objective of this particular sort. So I congratulate Women Development Cell, Women Development and Empowerment Cell of the BK Shroff College, and all the collaborators for organizing this international conference with the eminent speakers across the globe, I would say. I was wondering what to speak on such occasion because everyone is worrying about what is going to happen in future. Everyone is looking from different lenses, and one such important lens is gender lens. Like many of us, whenever you want to know a bit about a typical topic, we approach to Google search, and I did the same. When I did the same, to my great surprise, there is a flood of material resources which is available on the net. I'm not saying a very general kind of views, but a reputed journals like Lancet and Nature, they also have reported papers on, research articles on the gender bias, in what way and how women are being suffered in this particular pandemic. And this is a group of population which has got the great loss and the adverse impact on their lives. May it be a domestic violence, may it be livelihood issues, could be a quality of life, could be a availability of resources, responsibility at home, losses in careers and jobs, and whatnot. All such things are being considered and studied by various researchers. The researchers, in fact, pinpoint on one of the points that the data that they are getting may not be reliable, and some facts, which are really the facts, hard facts, are not able to bring to the notice of the intellectual in this particular area. In spite of that, now for all of us, it is high time to have a look at this particular aspect and study rigorously what are the issues that are happening as far as gender bias is concerned due to this pandemic, and what are the remedies on these particular issues. So it is not only analyzing, but it is something like a recommending to the society, to the government, and to all entire population that these are the things which are to be addressed properly so that equality sustains the entire globe. In fact, some of the data that I could see on our government website, the total number of patients across India, out of that, about 39% patients, they come from female category, and about 60-61% are from the male category. Again, my question is again same. Do you believe on such data? Right now, yes, since it is authentic, we have to trust it. But getting true data is a need of the hour. There are studies reported elsewhere. They say that across the globe, this particular phenomena is somewhat 50-50%. But according to me, when you look at the depth, it varies from country to country. It varies from the status of the country also. And I think 39%, 61% proportion in India is the true fact. In such situation, I really appreciate the initiative taken by the principal madam, the Women Empowerment Cell, and all the collaborators to bring all the experts in this particular field and have a kind of brainstorming session for the entire day. I really appreciate the contribution that will be there from students, international students, as well as the students from India. And I'm really happy that students are now coming forward and presenting their ideas before such forum. Otherwise, most of the times the role of the student is to listen to all, and they don't have a say. But I think I must congratulate this particular conference organizers for letting students to be part of this particular conference. I think I should not take much of your time, but I expect that the whole day you will have a wonderful discussion, deliberations, interactions, and finally you will come to certain conclusions which will reduce the gender bias, not in the pandemic, but in general also. My best wishes to organizers, collaborators, participants, resource persons, and you all. Last but not least, a word of caution. My appeal to all of you to strictly follow the guidelines issued by government, national level, state level, and of course, local authority. Stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you. Thanks to the organizers for making me part of this particular wonderful international conference, and my best wishes to all of you. Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Maharashtra.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir, for your compendious speech and kind words. It gives me immense pride to share that we have a very inspiring and successful female personality amongst us, Ms. 𝗤𝗲𝗏𝗃𝗏𝗏, Chairperson, Mahila Arthik Vikas Mahamandal, Women and Child Development, Government of Maharashtra. 𝗤𝗲𝗏𝗏𝗏 ma'am is currently at the cadre of Minister of State. Madam is the President of Women Economic Development. Within the charismatic political personality is hidden an intellectual academician. 𝗤𝗲𝗏 ma'am holds teaching experience of over 20 years. Ma'am is the recipient of many prestigious awards like 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 𝗟𝗢𝗢𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Inauguration Award, and many more. She started her political career as Zilla Parishad election 2012. After being Zilla Parishad member from District Thane, respected Jyoti ma'am became member of Education Committee District Thane. With being president of MAVIM, ma'am currently holds many other prestigious positions as chairman of 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏 Pratishthan Kudus, president Konkan Marathi Sahitya Parishad Wada Taluka branch, president Giants Group of Wada Vaitarna Saheli, member District Planning Committee District Palghar, member Konkan Marathi Sahitya Parishad, member Shriram Seva Sansthan Kudus. Ma'am, you are a true inspiration for the entire female fraternity. We are really honored to have you with us today. I now request Jyoti ma'am to kindly address the audience with her motivational words. Respected ma'am.
Thank you, Janvi ji, and good morning, everybody. Myself, Mrs. Jyoti Thakre, chairperson of MAVIM, that is Mahila Arthik Vikas Mahamandal of Maharashtra state. Here, I welcome you all. During pandemic, we can't gather, but by this conference, we can share our thoughts and ideas. Hence, I would like to congratulate Shroff College and their WDC team for organizing such a wonderful event. Today, I am going to speak about the work culture of MAVIM and its contribution during pandemic. Mahila Arthik Vikas Mahamandal, that is MAVIM. MAVIM being the State Women Development Corporation has its spread in all districts of Maharashtra, covering 10,495 villages and 259 urban local bodies. We are the nodal agency for empowering women across Maharashtra. Honorable Srimati 𝗶𝗏𝗍𝗍 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏, former President of India, being the first chairperson of MAVIM, it was started in the year 1975, as this year was also celebrated as International Women's Year. The rural presence of MAVIM is for significant period. of almost 2 decades, whereas urban is of around 4 years so.
Hello, everybody.
MAVIM has its own strong belief on comprehensive and holistic development of women belonging to the most vulnerable section of society, and thus bundle the appropriate strategies focusing on self-sustainability element. Even though having a banner and glamour of government organization, we have never adopted charity and subsidy approach. Up to now, MAVIM provided loan of more than 4,000 crores to our SHG members through bank linkages, and the repayment rate of it is 99.5%. All we insisted is on enabling women to realize their strengths and capabilities, take up supportive measures to enhance their abilities and help them to do the best even in the given odd situations and challenges. You all may agree with us that it has not been an easy journey for all of us. MAVIM had to build the team of dedicated and committed people, right from the state office till the grassroots people. MAVIM has always invested in soft skill development of the team. The miracle of gathering social mobilization of around 17.03 lakh poor and needy women in both urban as well as in rural through 1.45 lakh self-help groups. MAVIM has built a strong foundation in rural as well as in urban pockets of Maharashtra. This window has also helped SHG women for their own social and political empowerment. Today, approximately 30,000 MAVIM women members are representing on platforms like Panchayat Raj Maharashtra across Maharashtra. The SHGs are again institutionalized in the form of village organization, that is second tier, which essentially acts as a pressure group in case of fighting against social issues like alcoholism, domestic violence, health and hygiene, etc. The strength of togetherness has made women of MAVIM to think beyond me to we. MAVIM has successfully demonstrated the third tier of institution in the form of Apex Federation, known as Community Managed Resource Center, that is our CMRC. These organizations are owned, managed and governed by community members for whom MAVIM had facilitated and invested in enhancing their skills and capacities. CMRCs are instrumental in providing basket of services to their members' SHGs. The prominent ones are enabling access to credit, ensuring repayment to credit, then implementation of various value chain projects, skill development of women, nutrition enhancement projects for women. CMRCs are recognized and institutionalized as project implementation organization by various government departments and also do successfully mobilize resource up to rupees 50 lakhs per annum. The net results are visible through various studies and surveys. And we can proudly say that all these sets of efforts have been translated into increasing source of income, minimum 2 to 3 sources, reducing threat of dependency on any single source, creation of assets in the name of women, and so on. It's always said that behind the successful man, there is always a woman. However, in our case, we are proudly say that behind a successful woman, there is entire family. MAVIM through CMRCs has always encouraged the male participation and support in women empowerment related activities, either through MAVIM Mitra Mandal or Yuva groups. And hence, here I would like to take the opportunity to invite you in MAVIM Mitra Mandal. The mobilization of around 7.5 lakhs women entrepreneurs is a significant milestone set in the sector by MAVIM. One must agree that it has been possible as MAVIM has created a 360-degree conducive ecosystem incorporating right identification of right women, access to finance, need-based skill training, advisory support, and facilitating market linkages. The smart ways of digital marketing and accessing e-commerce has added flavors as per our need of time. The skill needs of entrepreneur women for financial management, business management has been rightly tracked and addressed through special wing of women resource trainers who are intensively trained by ILO. MAVIM was one of the implementing agencies of special project QAM, that is Convergence of Agriculture Intervention in Maharashtra during 2012 to 2018. One of the objectives of the project was to stop or prevent farmer suicide in 6 districts of Vidarbha region. We would proudly say that in 1,382 villages where MAVIM worked, no suicide cases took place. This shows that MAVIM not only empowers women, but also takes care of the whole family. The need of the time is to address the issues of access to larger finance to entrepreneurs to go a mile further, along with the business advisory services and planning skills. We are thankful to international funding agencies, especially from UN Group IFAD, for the 2 decades continuous partnership with MAVIM. Similarly, to Government of India, Government of Maharashtra, for believing in MAVIM's strengths in projects like State NRLM, that is MSRLM, NULM, Minority Development Department, SMART, Magnet, etc. MAVIM has also attracted other partners and CSRs like UNDP, UNICEF, Tata Trust, National Thermal Power Corporation, that is NTPC, EnviroFit, Studlight Foundation, JNPT, JSW Steel, Reliance Foundation, CRISIL Foundation, Lupin Foundation, WASH, etc., who are supporting a digital literacy, financial literacy, migrant support centers, COVID awareness, awareness on clean environment, skill development, entrepreneurship development, women health and hygiene, etc. Under COVID period, MAVIM has worked extensively in the rural as well as in urban areas. MAVIM requested all banks to stop the disbursement looking at the immediate repayment schedule. However, MAVIM has implemented 𝗪𝗔ശ്રી program, which was supporting ultra-poor women and debt reducing of SHGs. For these, I would like to thank Manav Vikas Department and of course, our Honorable Chief Minister of Maharashtra, Mr. 𝗟𝗢𝗢𝗏. This government program was for most vulnerable blocks from 20 districts of Maharashtra. Overall, 22,000 ultra-poor women and more than 150 number of families have been supported during last year by 𝗪𝗪ശ്રી program. 𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗃𝗃 Thali was one of the most attractive and successful scheme of government of Maharashtra, which was started just before COVID period. No one should be left hungry, hence providing the subsidized meal to poor people is the motto of the scheme. 29 CMRCs of MAVIM from 12 districts distributed more than 5 lakh thalis to the poor people. Some of the CMRCs also distributed the same for free of cost at the COVID situation. Apart from 𝗪𝗪𝗀𝗃𝗃 Thali, 64 our CMRCs from 26 districts has provided meals to 1 lakh plus migrant as well as poor families and poor people. When there is a will, there is a way. MAVIM has always followed this code and provided opportunity to urban and rural women for production of different kind of masks. Many government and private sectors has given, institutions also has given orders to CMRCs. Women has been trained online for production of masks, and these resulted in supply of more than 30 lakh face masks across Maharashtra. The turnover of this activity has reached up to rupees 5 crore of the CMRC has gone beyond this and fulfilled the need of PPE kit to government hospitals also. Looking at the support from government of Maharashtra for so many years, SHG members in some way wanted to contribute to the state in the pandemic situation. Hence, I appealed them to contribute only a rupee of their earning, and surprisingly, they donated rupees 11.35 lakhs towards Chief Minister's Support Fund. collectively. This was the most proud moment for MAVIM in its lifetime. Government has always relied on the SHG movement formed by MAVIM and had given them the contract of supplying food to various COVID care centers in some districts. There hasn't been a single complaint in last 1 year about quality and quantity of the food. In districts like Thana and Raigad, collector had also given order of supplying fresh vegetables as well as grains to government departments. 2,100 tons of rice and vegetables had been supplied so far. MAVIM has implemented the grain bank concept in Nandurbar districts, where poor were provided the grains on loan, which they were supposed to repay in terms of grains afterward. After Dhule, Parbhani, and Solapur, this concept has been adopted in various districts of Maharashtra. MAVIM's focus has been on healthy diet. And in the COVID period, we have created more than 200 cadre of Sahyoginis who were expert in green bank, or we can say Parasbag. Thus, with these Sahyoginis, we are spreading the thought of green bank also in our SHGs. The SHG members in last 1 year, that is in COVID period, have become so advanced that they shifted to online payment of SHG loans to avoid defaults in bank linkages. 65% women are using online platform to repay the loans. MAVIM's target is to encourage 100% women to go for digital transaction by end of this year. Banks like ICICI have really appreciated MAVIM's efforts for encouraging SHGs members towards online, or we can say that digital payment. The work from home culture has been adopted by MAVIM and also by our CMRCs immediately after lockdown. Number of partnerships have been done by MAVIM on financial literacy, supply chain management, marketing partners of various commodities, training partners, etc. CMRCs has always been in touch with the SHG members from their vicinity over phone call or WhatsApp. This has ensured that not a single woman from MAVIM should feel lonely or emotionally damaged. CMRCs used online meeting platform to conduct meetings, to talk to each and every members, which have always been very supportive in tough times of COVID. On the same grounds, MAVIM has organized first digital Mahila Sahitya Sammelan with the help of 𝗟𝗔𝗄𝗃𝗓𝗏 as well as Mumbai Marathi Patrakar Sangham. Also, famous Ukhana competition was held for women in Maharashtra. And I would like to say here that more than 1,400 women participated in this competition. The winners were given chance to represent their Ukhana on online platform of Sahitya Sammelan. When people were under trauma of increasing COVID cases, this competition helped to come out of it and feel light and positive. MAVIM has started undertaking special initiatives for individual women and girls to support and shape their career. As MAVIM has always helped and empowered women with many unique and innovative ways since last 46 years, it has been awarded with various prestigious awards like IFAD Gender Award, Scotch Award, Asian Pacific Award. It has also received appreciation from Niti Aayog also. MAVIM has set the example of sustainable institution and governance building through CMRCs. After 3 decades journey of SHGs and its members, they have graduated to the next level development. Their aspirations, management capacities, confidence level, credit worthiness has been grown substantially and accepted by the society, bank, and government officials. This is the most important achievement I count for SHG movement. Actually, it is not possible to describe and tell all about our MAVIM, but it's a small effort made by me. And I think here I am calling you all to join MAVIM and world culture of MAVIM. Thank you everybody for giving a very auspicious occasion for MAVIM. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Salute
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was a pleasure hearing you. And the dedicated efforts of your esteemed organization, ma'am, which are taking place under your leadership, they are worth appreciating and truly inspirational. Hope this pandemic ends soon and we get the privilege of visiting your organization. Once again, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now the time has come to introduce our keynote speaker, Dr. Pam Rajput, and I request Principal Ma'am to introduce her.
Thank you, Janvi. What an honor to introduce today's keynote speaker, Madam Dr. Pam Rajput, Professor Emeritus, Founder Director, Center for Women's Studies and Development, Punjab University, Chandigarh. A woman of substance in the true sense of the word, has had an illustrious career spanning 5 decades. 1942 born, and for Madam, age is just a number, which we all will realize as I go through her profile. She has been a former chair of a high-level committee on the status of women in India set up by Government of India. Basically belongs to the Department of Political Science, but her forte has always been gender studies. She has had a rich experience of over 2 decades of being in research and advocacy and gender and development issues like gender budgeting, etc. A skilled researcher, policy analyst and on development issues, a public speaker, she is an embodiment of a successful persona. Madam has trained 580 women in procedures of parliament, a training program for conducting sessions on women's parliament. Indeed, a first of its kind venture. She has been an ardent researcher on gender issues. She has been a doctoral degree guide and has conducted numerous research projects. She has also authored and edited numerous publications, reports, training manuals related to gender issues. Has participated and made presentations in more than 200 conferences, seminars at national and international level. Madam has been a member of POSH committee, that is Prevention of Sexual Harassment, of many institutions and corporate companies. Further to add, she has been decorated with many academic awards, assignments, including Commonwealth University Fellowship, Indo-Canadian Shastri Visiting Professorship, under which she has taken lectures in 10 universities in Canada. She has been a visiting professor at Hiroshima University, Japan. Friends, now I come to describe her association with United Nations and its agencies many a times. She has been a member of United Nations Women CSAG, that is Civil Society Advisory Groups. She has chaired the W20 Working Group on VAW set up by Italy W20 Presidency. Madam has been an international co-chair of Working Group on Women and Girls Russian Civil Society Forum 2020. Has attended Rio Summit 2 and Women's Global Conferences in Nairobi and Beijing. Madam has been on the United Nations Commission on Status of Women several times and has represented India too. The icing on the cake, I believe, is her address in the United Nations General Assembly Special Session in the year 2000. As convener of Women 2030, she has been working on implementation of Sustainable Development Goals through gender lens. Ma'am is currently engaged in conducting a study on Indian women and entrepreneurial equity and exploration of the supply side of financing. Madam, it's an honor and privilege, as I mentioned earlier, to peer team. I was always dreaming of Madam. Ma'am, which I didn't find anywhere in your privilege.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. You're audible. Yes, ma'am.
Let me first say that I am really touched by the kind of introduction and also kind words that my very dear friend, principal of the college, Dr. Bhushan, has said just now. Dr. 𝗏𝗃𝗃𝗏𝗏, Honorable Vice Chancellor of Shivaji University, Principal Dr. 𝗟𝗢𝗢𝗄𝗏, my great friend, Shrimati Jyoti Thackeray, Chairman MAVIM, my revered friend 𝗀𝗲𝗀𝗍𝗀, other dignitaries, including the Pro Vice Chancellor, the Registrar, and my friend Vibhuti Patel, the WDC conference team, particularly Vaishali, who has been corresponding with me. Friends, I take this opportunity first to congratulate the Shroff colleges of KE Society, who in collaboration with MAVIM, Department of Student Development of Shivaji University, and other organizations have organized this one-day seminar on a very, very pertinent theme. Must I say that I was a little reluctant to participate for the simple reason that every day as you begin it, you keep hearing the condolence messages. It is so distressing these days. And as I was just listening to the Vice Chancellor, there was a message that another colleague from a women's center in Jamia, assistant professor there, Nabia, she has also succumbed to COVID. All these things are really disturbing, but we must go on. And so I decided to say yes to, and more so because of the principal of the college. So I thank you and I congratulate the college for all the kind of achievements that it has made under her leadership. But also let me say that of course you have many scholars here. You have with me a person whom I really adore, and that is 𝗀𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀, the creative feminist, if I can call her. I was wondering if she was there, we were not needed at all. हाथी के पाँव के नीचे सभी आ जाते हैं. But now that you have invited me, let me share my thoughts. However, I wish to say two things. One, when we talk about COVID through gender lens, the theme of this international conference today, that it is not merely a health crisis issue. And secondly, if COVID is posing challenges, there are opportunities too. So we should think of opportunities too and try to see where we can strike our, rod. But since large number of students are participating in this, both national and international, I would wish to digress with your permission, Madam Chair. And that is, I would like to take them back to the last decade of the last century, and precisely the year 1995. It was the month of September. Hundreds and thousands of women gathered in Oahu, the NGO forum for the Fourth World Conference on Women, and later in Beijing, the venue of the official conference. And as Madam Principal introduced, I've had the honor to attend all these conferences. So at the conference, with all the hiccups, was adopted what we call as Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, with 12 critical areas, ranging from poverty to economy to health, education, women's rights, violence against women, women in decision-making, name any issue that was there. And I feel proud that India was the first country to get up early morning when it was not sure whether the document will be adopted or not. India was one of the first countries to stand up in support of the document. But why I'm saying about all this? The moment it was signed, friends who were there, I could see they were singing, dancing. And we came back home as if equality was achieved. The structural inequalities were done away with. Patriarchy, we thought, will be soon buried. And countries remain enthusiastic in reporting to the UN Commission on the Status of Women. But for how long? If I'm not saying to this thing, say nearly for 5 years, when the review took place of the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, the year when I addressed the UN General Assembly as a representative of Asia Pacific civil society. And thereafter what? Thereafter it became a routine. The CSW will come, somebody will present a small report over there. And of course, in 2001, we got a national policy on empowerment of women, which unfortunately again was never formalized. But it goes on. UN does its own business, if I can say so. It came with the MDGs and then have come SDGs now. In 2015, again in the month of September, the SDGs were adopted. We call it as transformative agenda. And the principle we keep talking about, no one shall be left behind, and the agenda to be completed by 2030. We have a goal, standalone goal, SDG 5, but gender is a cross-cutting theme. And again, you see where we were ascetic in the corridors of the United Nations. We were happy that gender equality, but when you look at the indicators, it indicates gender equality is still a distant goal. There is doubt that it will be realized by 2030. But in 2020, we were preparing for the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action and talking about generational equality. As we were talking about it, what happens? Comes the great COVID-19. COVID-19 looks like as some Mr. David has come. And COVID said, hold on. Let me lay bare the structural inequalities that still exist. And that, as a matter of fact, you will see, I am derailing, I'm talking about COVID. I'm going to derail all the minor gains that you have made so far. And that has come very, very true. And this is substantiated by the report of the Secretary General of the United Nations. As Mr. Vice Chancellor was talking, that you get these documents. So if you look at the Secretary General's policy brief on the impact of COVID, where he categorically states that pandemic is deepening the pre-existing, my emphasis is on the word pre-existing inequalities, exposing vulnerabilities in social, political, and economic systems. The policy brief, of course, I will really want you to look at that document whenever you have time. It's available on the site. The policy brief deals at length with economic impacts and the disproportionate impact on health, unpaid care, violence, etc., etc. But what clearly comes out from all accounts is when we look at COVID through gender lens, that it impacts all, but impacts women more disproportionately. As I said earlier, it's not merely a health crisis and has affected our lives in different ways, in different spheres. And I would like to talk about three things in my short time that I have. One, of course, we talk about impact, but more important than impact now is to talk about the recovery response. And the third I want to focus is on what role can the educational institutions play. And before I forget, there's another thing that is coming up. We should be, conscious about it. Now, the research coming up from biological and other this thing, that nanomedicine, also affects differently the patients, male and female. So we have, for ages, we never talked about gender medicine. If this is crocin, give it to both men and women. There has been no research at all. How does crocin affect the female as against the male? So in regard to, now these medicines, the research that is coming out is, and there are three pieces of research that have been there, how even the vaccine that is being given to us does affect women differently from that of men. So when we are looking at gender lens, we have to look at from the medical, this kind of point of view also. Now, with regard to the impacts, of course, the Vice Chancellor hinted, and let me talk briefly about these again, and I'm sure the panelists are also going to discuss that with Vibhuti Patel and all over there. The visible fact that is, felt the researchers that come out, but before that, I must say, is that we must look at everything from the diversity framework. There is a diverse impact on diverse women, be those marginalized, Dalit, Adivasis, rural women, women with disabilities, women in the informal sector, etc. And this is very important for our policy response when it comes to that. Now, first, of course, is the health. And we all know that health is affected. And of course, it is talked usually in the circles that male mortality is higher than that of female mortality. But with this, we forget that even if male mortality is higher, when that takes place, we are adding to the number of widows in our country or anywhere on the earth. When we have to plan, we have to keep that in mind. Also, it has come now very clearly that the 70% of the frontline workers or the care workers, essential workers are women. And now it is proven that these women workers, they face greater fertility, their mortality, because of the ill-fitting PPEs, personal protection kits. So when the person kits are being, nobody thought from the gender point of view that these have to be different. So they are unisex and they are not comfortable, and there is a high rate of mortality of these very workers. The third, of course, is, I want to talk about it later, about the vaccine. But when we talk about, invariably we forget about the mental health. So mental health, the depression that is there, the kind of response required for, the psycho kind of a counseling that is required, it's important to note of that. And we also know that women work from home virtually, and we find that even technology is affecting them because we are working from home. The recent study says that 27% of the female engineering students, as against the 19% male students, were suffering from what is known as prolonged electronic exposure during the pandemic. And this may be associated with more severe injuries. So we have to address this also as we think of our responses to that. The second most important, of course, critical impact is on livelihoods. The loss of jobs, even when MAVIM is doing so much in Maharashtra, I'm talking about the country. In fact, globally it is true, but I'm talking particularly about our country, and this loss of job, livelihood, it is pushing women into extreme poverty with questions of food security, malnutrition, etc. The data of CMI clearly shows that there is a decline, further decline. As it is, we have been having decline over the years in the labor force participation rate. But now there is further decline in the this thing. Vibhuti Patel, Deshpande, and many other scholars have extensively studied how there is gendered impact, experiences of COVID-19 on the labor market with intersection of inequalities of caste, class, ethnicity, etc. Deshpande points out, which is quoted by Vibhuti, I'm quoting from her paper that appeared in Economic and Political Weekly, that 1.1 crore jobs are lost. And most of these were of self-employed people in urban areas and casual workers in the rural areas. And predominantly, these are women. 93%, as we all know, of the women are in the informal sector. And during the lockdown, I'm happy that MAVIM has been doing something, but still the reality is the daily workers, the domestic workers, they have really suffered as a result of this. McKinsey Global Institute of, Global Institute has also come out with a report, and they say their surveys in US and India show that female job losses rates resulting from COVID-19 are about 1.8 times higher than that of the male job loss. In India, they say women made up 20% of the workforce before COVID. Now, their share of job loss has further, affected this, with the industry mix alone is estimated at 17%. Unemployment surveys support actually account for job loss of women is at 23%. And again, it is said when jobs are scarce, men should get the jobs first, not women. And in fact, it needs to be studied also, because we were saying that in Manrega, more women were there. But now with the migrants going back home and claiming for Manrega posts also, is it affecting the participation of women in those? So what actually is said is what gets measured gets economic value. So what is measured is also, managed well. So we have to look into, the work of the women. May I also add that we went on talking about migrants, but our focus was very little on women migrants over there. And we have been, so they have been missing from our scene. What the study shows is that 78% of the rural women and 59% of the urban migrant workers are unskilled. And they just work in manual labor, always paid less for that matter. Only 16% of the rural and 18% of the urban migrant women are skilled. So the gender bias with regard to job losses and their impact on livelihood with more vulnerabilities during pandemic is clearly visible, that needs to be addressed. The third impact is on unpaid care work. Now, in fact, unpaid care work is on the agenda, international agenda also, and I think it should be strongly on our agenda. Our agenda I'm focusing on so far is not over there, and it is one of the indicators of even goal SDG 5. Now, huge data on unpaid care work is there that has multiplied during the pandemic. As it is, the share of unpaid work or care work, whatever you call, has increased like anything. of course, there have been studies on time use surveys in India, but it is heartening to see that even MOSPI, engaged itself with the time use survey, and it came out with a report in 2020. Now, which says the participation rate in India in unpaid activities is 63.6% of women. In overall, in rural areas, it is 85%. In urban areas, it is 81.7%. But this report was done prior to, the pandemic. Now, during the pandemic, it has been added, whether it is schooling of children, caring of, the seniors, attending to, the demands of your other family members, including your husband, and your own office work if you're working. Interestingly, it is maintained, and people quote Shakespeare and Newton. And they said during plague in England, they produce best of their work, but they forget, and they don't mention Newton never married. And in fact, so he didn't have the children either. And in Cambridge University, his meals and everything was being taken care by the university. What about Shakespeare? Shakespeare was roaming in the theatre city of England, that is London, and his wife and children were somewhere else. But we are quoted, look here, during this period, these men can produce something like that. And it is commented with caring responsibilities, you do not have time to write King Lear or to develop a theory of optics for that matter. So Corona, as a matter of fact, I just saw one caption and I was really attracted to that. It says, Corona is a disaster for feminism, right? So this is how when we look at gender lens, the things are coming up. The third important impact is on domestic violence. Sadly, of course, in these trying circumstances, domestic violence cases have been up. This is global phenomena, but that can be no excuse for having domestic violence in our own country. Nearly 30% rise is there. It is borne by the reports of National Commission for Women, the police chief and everything. And added to this is that in these trying circumstances, there is increase of cyber violence. And also there is increase of cases of trafficking. And during this time, child marriages, the number of cases of child marriages have been reported. There were attempts by the police to stop those also. But there is a study from Karnataka that says not only child marriages, the college-going girls, they were stopped by the parents from going to college, and they were pressurized to for marriage. Each and every aspect of the lives of women, are being affected, and it is as much true of education, and education. There is a UNESCO report which says in India how millions of children are out of school and learning system, and majority of them, these are girls, because of they don't have access to smartphones and internet, and good chunk is from Maharashtra. I was looking at the figure. Now it is tragic indeed that we are talking of, at this point of time, generational equality. In fact, next month in June in Paris begin generational equality. And I was wondering when we were having a discussion with the UN chief in India, meeting of the advisory group, with regard to what should be our response. And I was pointing out to her that other things are being taken care of, but education is one we really need to, look at and think in terms of intervention. For if we do not do that, we will be a generation of girls during the pandemic. So it is a serious issue for that matter. Now, given the gendered impact, few issues I've talked, there would be many. I'm looking at the watch, my time is gone. Let me say that second important thing is, there will be many, and we can go on doing the research, what is the local and the national and this thing. And what is the response, gender response? When I say response, that is in terms of planning, in terms of policies, action plan, the schemes. Is there a conscious effort to keep in mind the disproportionate gender impact in the task forces, the advisory committee? Some have tried to study how many women are there in the advisory committees and all. But let me tell you that MJ BMJ Global Institute, they have done a study, and out of the countries they have studied, they point out that in these task forces, 85% of they are managed by predominantly men. Task forces में 85% are men, only 11.5% are women, and others are 3.5%. And coming to India, we don't show very positive picture. Only 12.5% women are there. And in this context, I again may be digressing, but I do want to mention, because it has been disturbing my mind. Look at the scene of Kerala. The health minister, earlier former health minister, if I can say, during the pandemic, managed the whole health crisis in our state beautifully. She was in the international, attention was caught by the international media, and she was appearing with Angela Merkel and others. Now in the election, she again wins, and she is the only woman, the only person to get highest votes in the state of Kerala. But when it comes to cabinet formation, her space over there, she is denied a ministerial berth. Now it's a punishment to her for doing a good job. What is the plea? The plea is of the chief minister. I may be excused by saying this. We want to have totally a new cabinet. Now those who deliver, you are punishing them. I would put it like that. And my second question is that when you talk of cabinet, the chief minister is a part of the cabinet. If the whole cabinet has to be there, then why an exception of chief minister to be made, he to be there, the ministers to be dropped? We can see, the reason for, such a thing, but unfortunately, there is no voice against this. No, we read in the newspapers, but there is no kind of a demand from women's groups. Where we are talking of women in decision-making positions, but when a woman does go, you try to oust them like this. This bothers me, and so I'm sharing it with you. And so what is important is that when all this is, what is our role? Our role is in terms of advocacy, and to see from national to local that the response packages that we need to, unpack the response packages from local to the national and see whether those response packages are gender responsive or not. Is the diversity inbuilt as a component or not? And so in that context, I want to come to the third aspect, and that's my last point, and that is what role the education institutions can play. Having seen the impact, the need for gender responsive, planning and recovery and coming up, so what role education institutions can play? Now, while we all educational institutions promote research that needs to be done, but we should promote research, that kind of research which has policy implication. And we should thereafter engage in influencing the planning and implementation, the resource allocation. And if I can say so, this research should lead into, we have not used the word, but I would like to use into what I would call as educational activism. I think our new education policy certainly makes a room for that kind of educational activism, and that activism can come first through creating awareness. And when I say awareness, like the vaccination, the other day they were showing on the TV that in the state of Madhya Pradesh, I don't know whether it was Madhya Pradesh or in Newari is in which state, they were showing that women still believe in those traditional methods. Hindi mein usko tuna bolte hain. I don't know what would be the English word for that. And the men, standing with bucket of water and some leaves, they were throwing some water on them, and they said, doing this, corona will run away. Now we have to come out of those, of traditional, which have no scientific basis at all. So we have to create awareness about the vaccination. It is very important. We have to create awareness about the safe spaces. So if we are thinking that women should be there, they have to be, safe. And apart from that, again, where education institutions can play a role, and that is digital literacy. Of course, Madam 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 was talking about financial literacy, but I think this is the age of digitization, and still there is a gender divide, and in that gender divide, the digital literacy is very, very important. I would say for two reasons straight away. One is that can educational institutions, come out in simple language, how to use your, digital apps. Even a person like me, I am a single person. God forbid if anything happens and there is a lockdown, I do not know how to use I do have a mobile, but I do not know how to use it and order for my medicine or for any other, essential thing that I might need for myself. So older people, single people, widows, and whether they are men or women, you see, digital literacy is something in this area of, in this era of COVID, you see, we have to teach them how to operate so that from while sitting safe at home, they can, manage their thing. And second, and I was glad that Madam 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 was talking about how through these self-help groups and all that is being done, can self-help groups also be used along with Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, and your women development cell and the student development cell in, in local areas, trying to locate, in rural areas, locate the school dropouts. Now, how can they be helped with providing them these, smartphones so that they can be online, they are not drugged, and they are on board so that, as I said, we do not lose a generation of young people over there. So to me, this digital literacy is very, very important. And then important, of course, is the entrepreneurial skill. Since there is a, loss of jobs, livelihood, and women are in times to come, we have to focus. It's very heartening to see Mahila Arthik Vikas doing a lot of this. I think we need to focus more on this for that matter. And that brings me, we need to think of what can immediately be done and what can be there, what there can be, what I would call as futuristic plans. So the college, and through all these can play a critical interventionist role in promoting, now this is futuristic plan, in promoting an empowered generation of youth. I'm not talking only of girls. So if we have to see that 21st century really is in true sense, women's century, then we have to empower both boys and girls. And so how do we do it? Again, you have to think, in terms of that interventionist strategies to produce that kind of a generation. And as I said in the beginning, and I come to that last point, that if there are challenges to meet this, there are opportunities also. And the opportunities we must look for is, of course, there are foreign participants, but I like to use example in Hindi, you can explain to them. जैसे घर टूटता है, तो एक तरीका तो यही है कि यहीं थोड़ी थोड़ी ईंट लगा के, सीमेंट लगा के उसको बना लिया जाए. दूसरा ये है कि उसको गिरा दिया जाए और एक नया घर बनाया जाए. सो ये नया घर जो बनाने की मैं रिकमेंड करूंगी, and that is a society which is a just, gender-based and equal society. So Corona is giving us an opportunity, right, to come out with a gender-just and equal society so that we do not have to talk of, oh, let us look at gender through gender lens, this, through gender lens. Let us think about that of the future. And I also must share with you that, as mentioned by the Honorable Principal Ma'am, that we have W20. This is Women 20. This is an engagement group of G20 countries. G20 countries, constitute the largest population and largest economy because it includes both the developed economies as well as the developing economies. And in that, you see, as we interact, because we are officially listening, this year again, the summit is going to take place in July, and we are working on the communique to be presented to the leaders. Our pillars are, for that matter, we have been talking, financial and entrepreneurial inclusion, labor inclusion, digital inclusion, women in decision-making and governance, violence against women, climate change. But now the focus is, as we talk amongst ourselves, and last year I headed the working group on women in decision-making, This year I am heading the working group on violence against women. Our focus is, why are we talking only about inclusion? We have to talk about gender parity, gender equality. So the focus is on gender equality and gender this thing. And unless women are there in decision-making bodies, so there is a call from, the chair of the Saudi Arabia last year, Madam Thoraya, she gave a call, if equality not now, when? And I think that is one thing which we need to adopt. So pandemic, friends, is a lesson. From time to time, the challenges to structural inequalities are there. We have to, we have to change those. We have to promote women. And since, you are a great educational institution, so we have to promote women and girls to stake their claims to positions, be it the corporate world, be it the financial world, be it the labor market, be it the digital market. And educational institutions, I repeat, have a great role to play, both in, with partnership with other organizations, in planning, in advocacy, and doing an audit of implementation, whether the responsiveness is there or not, resources are there or not. And I must say, when I talk about resources, we keep talking about gender budgeting. It is time now, and I request Vibhuti and others, I would be happy to join. We should start doing the exercise right now before the next budget comes, that what kind of a gender budgeting should be there in the next budget. And having said that, I would like to again once thank the principal of the college, and also like to congratulate Madam 𝗥𝗲𝗀𝗏𝗏, the kind of the work that is going on. I am confident that the other panelists, whether they are from within the country or from abroad, and they would have, from abroad particularly, they would share their experiences, and if there are any best practices that we can follow in our country, that will be great. I congratulate the college for organizing this international conference on such a pertinent theme, and I'm sure in times to come we will be able to have a very precise action plan, be it research, be it advocacy, whatever you decide, and follow it. I am there with you. Anytime you remember, I'll be there. Thank you very much once again.
Janvi, allow me to speak for a few minutes. Thank you so much, madam. Really overwhelmed. Janvi, audible?
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. There is some network issue, ma'am. The voice is lagging.
Just a sec. Just.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
It's echoing.
थोड़ा सा echo.
No, ma'am. Your voice is echoing.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry for the interruption, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. It's clear now. Yes, ma'am.
It was a wonderful session. I think when I spoke the last lines of my introduction to madam, I would like to tell this august audience that ma'am was invited by the Pakistan government and has shared stage with the late ex-Prime Minister of Pakistan, Madam Benazir Bhutto. Madam, I remember you telling me this. So I wanted to tell this, though I could not find this anywhere in your introduction, but I remember these words. I was totally in awe. Let me take a few minutes in thanking you, madam. Your narration has been wonderful, has given us enough food for thought, an eye-opener really to ponder on issues raised by you like gender medicine and think about the women migrants. Absolutely right, madam. We were always focusing on the government, and even the media was focusing on the male migrants. They never spoke of women migrants. Diversity framework, wonderful. And an issue which may sound so trivial like the PPE kits. very importantly said, and I think we need to study and make suggestions. Your friend from Saudi Arabia saying, if equality not now, then when? Very truly said. Madam, we take your ideas and takeaways from you, promoting research, having policy formulations, and we as educational institutions will definitely work on educational activism, safe spaces, digital literacy, absolutely 1000% correct, and entrepreneurial skills. And I'm sure MAVIM is way ahead in all these things. Thank you, Pam madams. Welcome once again, and thanks a lot for being with us on this platform with us today. Thank you. Janvi, back to you.
Thank you, Principal Ma'am. Dr. Pam Rajput, ma'am, it was such a beautiful and a fruitful experience hearing you. The angles that you shared had never ever even came to our mind. Thanks again, ma'am, for being here. Unfortunately, 𝗂𝗲𝗀𝗍𝗻, ma'am, our guest for today's inaugural session, couldn't make her presence due to unavoidable circumstances. I request Vibhuti ma'am to kindly convey 𝗂𝗲𝗀𝗍𝗻 ma'am's message for the conference. Vibhuti ma'am? Ma'am, I think you're mute.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
I have unmuted myself. Yes. So, 𝗂𝗲𝗀𝗍𝗻 madam had a major tragedy where 7 members of her family, including her brothers, their spouses, their children and grandchildren, and her own son were extremely ill. So she was not in that shape, but I would like to tell, because she has been our co-traveler in the women's movement for past 50 years. And she, as we know, that she was a product of a midnight, she's a midnight's child because she was born in 1946. And as Pamji said, that when there is an elephant, you don't need anyone else. 𝗂𝗲𝗀𝗍𝗻 has made extremely important contribution over last 50 years as feminist activist, poet, author, and social scientist. She worked in the rural areas. Her career began in the rural areas of Rajasthan, and where she wrote her direct experience with the grassroots reality of working with the tribal women, poor women, farmer women, that gave her a tremendous sensitivity, and she started using folk medium, folk song, the language that people would understand. And that's why her writings have been so popular, translated into 30 languages. She also worked in the Food and Agricultural Organization of United Nations till 2002. After that, she has been working with Sangat, of which she is a founder, member, and advisor. She's committed to research where she believes in both combination of feminist theory and praxis and community action. And currently also under coronavirus pandemic, her organization Jagori Rural is massively involved in Himachal Pradesh into the relief operations. She has worked with women from underserved sections of society, and she has also with children, and often she has used posters, plays, songs, and stories to get through to communities with low literacy rates. She believes that the effective social transformation can come only with community mobilization, and there is no other shortcut. You have to work with the community. Her campaign, which she started in 2013, she's in charge of 1 billion rising campaign for Asia. Her organization Sangat works with 9 South Asian countries and to combat gender-based violence and to strive for social order, founded on the ethos of economic, social, environment, and gender justice. We are missing 𝗂𝗲𝗀𝗍𝗻, and we convey our solidarity and support because you are alone, single-handedly, you are fighting against so many fronts when there is a health emergency in your own family, providing community support and also providing support and healthcare work that you are doing for your family members. I would like to end with as Pamji said, that currently the major crisis we are facing is that more than 10 million girls in our country, they are out of school. Globally also, with this online education, so many girls are out of school. 𝗂𝗲𝗀𝗍𝗻 has done massive work in collaboration with UNESCO for girls' education. And here are her verses, which are originally written in Hindi and translated into English, which is about girls' education. A father asks his daughter, study. Why do you want to study? The daughter, I have sons aplenty who can study. Girl, why do you study? The daughter tells the father, since you ask, here is why I must study. Because I am a girl, I must study. Long denied this right, I must study. For my dreams to take flight, I must study. Knowledge brings new light, so I must study. For the battles I must fight, I must study. Because I am a girl, I must study. To avoid destitution, I must study. To win independence, I must study. To fight frustration, I must study. To find inspiration, I must study. Because I am a girl, I must study. To fight men's violence, I must study. To end my silence, I must study. To challenge patriarchy, I must study. To demolish all hierarchy, I must study. Because I am a girl, I must study. To mold a faith I can trust, I must study. To make laws that are just, I must study. To sweep centuries of dust, I must study. To challenge what I must study. Because I am a girl, I must study. To know right from wrong, I must study. To find a voice that is strong, I must study. To write feminist songs, I must study. To make a world where girls belong, I must study. Because I am a girl, I must study. I think, Kamalaji, the same is the motto of this conference, that through research and documentation and sharing of experience, we find the solution to this major health emergency that world is facing, and also its dire consequences on women, children, and all those who are underserved in this economy and society. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Vibhuti ma'am, for sharing such intellectual words. With this, we now come to the end of our inaugural session, and to deliver the vote of thanks, I invite Dr. Pratibha Desai.
Ma'am, you are on mute.
Pratibha ma'am, we can't hear you.
Ma'am, can you switch off your video and then try, because your voice is not audible, ma'am. I think there is network issue.
Ma'am, Pratibha ma'am, you're still not audible.
Mommy? Mommy?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, can you put your earphones?
Pratibha ma'am?
Yeah.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Devang sir, can you suggest something?
Yeah, ma'am, can you please leave from audio and again join with audio? Because your mic is not detected in Zoom.
Pratibha ma'am, Devang sir is suggesting you just leave the meeting and join back again, because maybe your mic is not detected by the Zoom. That's the problem. We're waiting for you, ma'am. Aarti ma'am and Vaishali ma'am, please intimate us once Pratibha ma'am joins us.
She has joined again. She has joined again.
Okay. Madam. All right.
Pratibha ma'am?
Hello,
Probably
now
she's.
is it audible?
Yes,
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 ma'am.
absolutely, ma'am. Fine.
Okay, sorry for disturbance, ma'am.
Hmm.
Society is not the statics, it is the dynamic. It changes every time. The changes are either for external factors or due to the internal factor. Now, COVID-19 is one of the external factor which stuck the entire society and brings the changes in the society. Now, there are the new concepts like corona positive, social distancing, isolation, sanitization. These are the to be all the concepts are now to be coming emerged, and the women are the frontline workers, and these changes are need to see into the gender lines. In this way, the today's international conference will going to highlight the gender issues in the pandemic or seeing the pandemic through the gender lens. And already all the dignitaries have been there expressed their views. And now I am Dr. 𝗵𝗲𝗀𝗿𝗀𝗍𝗂 Desai, the coordinator, 𝗵𝗃𝗀𝗀𝗍𝗂 Abhiyan, Shivaji University, to hear the proposed vote of thanks for this inaugural sessions. I am very much thankful our chief patron, Dr. Vice Chancellor, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Professor 𝗍𝗂𝗏 𝗏𝗃𝗀 sir, who had given the permission for this collaboration conference and delivered a thought-provoking inaugural address. Thank you, sir. I am very much thankful for our Pro-Vice Chancellor who had given the permission, and he is also with us. I am very much thankful the chief patrons and the president of 𝗂𝗲𝗏𝗍𝗂 Society, Sri Satish sir, Treasury Mahesh, Sri Mahesh Chandran sir, and Honorable Treasurer sir, and our dynamic principal, Dr. 𝗵𝗀𝗀𝗻 madam. And I am very much thankful to the Pam Rajput ma'am, who is giving that is a wonderful, that means there is no words to say for her narrations or to the her speech. Thank you, ma'am. I am very much thankful, ma'am, Jyoti Thakre ma'am, who is the chairman of Mahila Arthik Vikas Mahamandal, and I see her. This Mahamandal is working for the wonderful work for the downtrodden, where the self-help groups are bringing the changes in the downtrodden women. And we have also taken one of the organizations, one of the conference for the self-help group women, and those who are actively engaged and they are expecting something from us. Thank you, Pam. I am very much thankful for the Kamala Vesima, who is not here, but she is to be the, there is no word to for say. She is the feminist writer and activist. I am thankful for the chief guest of the body for madam, who is to be going deliver for the valedictory sessions. I am very much thankful for our plenary resource persons, which one is we are waiting more, we are waiting for them. That is Dr. Vibhuti Patel ma'am, Dr. Mariam ma'am, Sangeeta ma'am, Chitra Sena ma'am, Habil Roxana ma'am, and the moderators, and as well as also our chairpersons, and Haldankar sir, Pawar madam, and Rutuja ma'am, and all these, those who are now leading our plenary sessions, as well as our presentations. I am very much thankful to the Vice Principal, Dr. V.S. Khanna, ma'am, V.S. Khanna, Vice Principal of Shroff College, Arts and Commerce College. I am very much thankful to R.V. Guru sir, who is always inspiring for to conduct these type of the programs, and he is the director of BSW of Shivaji University. I am very much thankful for the International Advisory Committee, Abil Roxana ma'am, and other one ma'am from the South Africa. And I am very much thankful, ma'am, the CSW chair, Women Development Chair, ma'am, Dr. Vanita, ma'am, and I am outstruck to thanks for Vaishali Oza, ma'am. Since from nearly one month we are interacting, even though at midnight, 1 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 11 o'clock, there is no time for. She has spent 24 hours to organize this wonderful conference, and which is becoming very successful. Thank you, Vaishali ma'am. And I am also thankful to the conference secretary, Miss Aarti Gadre ma'am, Susmita Shena Gupta ma'am, Rajkumar Gupta sir, Jayasri Lokande. All these are our colleagues, those we are organizing this type of conference. I am very much thankful for technical head. Just now there is the interruption and he has given quick solution, Mr. Devang Thakur sir, student coordinator Kushi Ronak Janvi Mehta. And now our session, our work conference will become successful for the wonderful paper presentations from throughout globe. And we have student presentation from the student already. Our PC Sahab has told that, and ma'am is also told that we are giving the participations for the international students. And there is Arjal Masanta from Philippines. He is also one of the teacher delegates from the international students. We got 90 papers, those who are going to present on different themes. Thank you for all these paper presenters. And next, the participants, those who are viewing our conference on the YouTube, and they are also part of our conference. Thank you for all these. That means commerce. And I am very much thankful for all our teachers from Shivaji University, HODs, and all the teachers from 𝗂𝗃𝗃𝗃 College and other delegates from throughout the India. Last, this conference will be made live. It is actually online, but it was made live by Janvi, who's smiling, give the very, that means conference is going very smooth. Thank you, Janvi, for anchoring this session. And is there any name, any names was left? Say to sorry. And I thank you once again for all of you being for the inaugural sessions and be with us till for valedictory sessions to make this conference very wonderful and enthusiastic. Just I want to take one photo, so that's why I'm just okay. Thank you for once again, all of you. Welcome for this enlightened conference. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pratibha ma'am, for your encouraging words. That was really sweet of you. Now, we take you all to the plenary session, that is the panel discussion. This international conference will always remain remarkable and historic for our institution because today we have with us the most eminent and distinguished personalities across the globe who are making this valuable contribution in the field of women empowerment. In this league, I first welcome Honorable Dr. 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏 Patel, economist and women rights activist. I request Pratibha ma'am again to introduce 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏 ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. It is my great privilege to introduce such a great personality, 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏 ma'am, and she is to be the academician and women activist, as well as she is the good, that means she is giving the good speaker also. That since COVID-19, I am seeing that every day ma'am is delivering lectures, and ma'am, I think that she never did get this tired from all these things, and I think that ma'am is very grateful. And just I will give the brief introductions to the ma'am. Professor 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏 Patel ma'am, superannuated from TIS Mumbai on 36/6/30/6/20, and she's worked as Advanced Center for Women Studies, School of Development Studies, Tata Institute of Social Science after her retirement from SNDT Women's University. She has done PhD in Economics from University of Women. She has awarded the visiting fellowship to the London School of Economics, Political Science from the Association of Commonwealth Universities, UK in 1992 and 96. She has authored and co-authored 12 books, co-edited 19 books, contributed over 100 papers as a chapter in various books edited by others. She has also co-authored 34 monographs and reports. Her research papers, comments, commentaries, reviews have been published in national as well as international academic for PG Pathshala, UGC and UGC New Delhi, as well as very great magazine that's the EPW, Economic and Political Weekly. She has several citations awards to her credit To name of them, Award for Social Sector Work from Mayor of the Mumbai, Outstanding Citizenship Award by Women Political Forum on Maharashtra 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 She is the member of editor board of various national and international journals, such as the International Journal of Economics, Education and Development, 𝗏𝗏 Samajik Chintan, and Pragati, Social Modernity, Asian Journal, Quest in Education. And over all this, she is always the inspirer, supporter, and very loving for us, for like the juniors like us, those who are wish to work in the gender studies. Thank you, ma'am, for being a resource person to our plenary session, and welcome, and please share your views for this plenary session. Thank you, ma'am.
I now request 𝗟𝗢𝗢𝗏 ma'am to kindly present the profile and introduce our esteemed guest, Professor 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏 ma'am.
A very good afternoon to each and every one of you. Let me take this opportunity to present the profile of someone who is universally respected and adored across the globe for her immense work. It is none other than Professor Dr. 𝗏𝗏𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 professor with the Bucharest University of Economic Studies, Romania. Dr. Marinscu's main research interests are post-colonial and post-communal studies, feminism and gender issues, education for intercultural and plurilingual communication, democratic citizenship and active participation in local communities and transnationally. Dr. Marinscu is a member of an Society for Feminist Analysis. Dr. Marinscu is the president of the Society for English and American Studies of WDEC. She is a member of the European Society for the Study of English since 2007. Professor Marinscu has been the editor-in-chief of the academic journal Synergy. Dr. Marinscu has authored 4 books and co-edited 3 volumes. The contribution of Dr. Marinscu to the humanity can be spoken in volumes. Ma'am, we have the greatest pleasure to welcome someone of your stature for this conference. Thank you. Now I request Assistant Professor Mrs. Nandini Katti to introduce Dr. 𝗏𝗵 𝗱𝗲𝗏𝗀. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mary Pillai. Good afternoon. Dr. 𝗏𝗵 𝗱𝗲𝗏𝗀, Professor of Sociology at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, received her doctorate degree in 2006. Her dissertation's title, Socialization, Process of the African Girl Child, today is a book which is widely read by academicians and research scholars worldwide. Madam has to her credit more than 80 research papers in international Scopus journals and conference proceedings. Professor 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 has also been awarded with 7 research grants on projects from international universities worldwide. She is a visiting professor at Taylor's University, Malaysia, and at the Covenant University in Nigeria. Madam is one of the 25 certified clinical sociologists worldwide and just one among the 3 in South Africa, certified by Association for Applied and Clinical Sociology. Madam, a founder member of SMART, Simply Managing Academic Related Tasks, has been developed to assist students with learning disorders during the pandemic period. Currently, Madam is the chair of International Research Network for Applied Clinical Sociologists and an expertise in gender, curriculum evaluation, parenting, educational development, and human behavior analysis. To quote Madam, who believes that to be empowered, we must read what nobody else is reading, think what nobody else is thinking, and to do what nobody else is doing. In this context, she is supporting the cause of African women against 𝗤𝗏𝗡𝗏𝗏 at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, meaning you strike a woman, you strike a rock, and you will be crushed. We are indeed very fortunate to have such an illustrious, distinguished, renowned, eminent personality. Good morning to you, Dr. Mariam Siddharth-Khan, and welcome. Thank you. I now request Dr. 𝗏𝗏𝗡𝗏𝗏 to carry forward.
Well, thank you. Dr. Chitra Sinha. Dr. Chitra Sinha is a senior academic of global repute. She has many feathers in her hat and a quiver full of arrows, I'm sure. At present, she is the co-founder of 𝗚𝗏𝗀𝗃𝗃 Consultancy in Bahrain. She's a gender studies specialist with a PhD from University of Mumbai, and she has completed her postdoctoral training at University of California, Los Angeles. She has also studied international law and human resource management, this one from none other than Cornell University. Dr. Sinha has been in academics for over 3 decades and has worked with over half a dozen universities from the countries like India, United States, Sweden, South Africa, and Bahrain. The ones like the fellowship given by Royal Asiatic Society and the South Asia Regional Fellowship given by the Ford Foundation. Her book, Debating Patriarchy, is published by Oxford University Press. So we have amongst us a very illustrious Ivy League graduate, a globetrotter, a superwoman indeed. Dr. Chitra Sinha, we are very eager to hear you. Back to you, Janvi ma'am.
Thank you so much, Harshit sir. I feel really privileged in introducing Dr. Sangeeta Desai ma'am, a lady with immense energy and determination to work for the development of female fraternity. Let me acquaint you all with Sangeeta ma'am's profile. Ma'am graduated in Commerce and Economics and completed her MBA from very prestigious Jamnalal Bijang Institute of Management and acquired her doctorate in Women's Studies from SNDT Women's University, Mumbai. Ma'am is the co-founder of Rewrite, an organization that focuses specifically on women's reproductive health rights. Besides this, she also works as a consultant to Bachao, an NGO that addresses issues of adolescent girls and women living in slums of Mumbai. Teaching and research are her passion. She is faculty at the Research Center for Women's Studies at SNDT and teaches gender and development and gender and legal terrain to MA students. She has also undertaken various research projects on gender and development, women's health, and women's political spaces. She has worked in the interiors of Maharashtra to bring out the challenges and issues faced by the women development workers in rural areas. Ma'am has written more than a dozen academic papers for national and international peer-reviewed journals and presented her research findings in various national and international conferences. Ma'am has also started her own enterprise, Inclusive Horizon, which focuses primarily on women's health. She's passionate on issues surrounding women's livelihoods, their economic and social empowerment. Ma'am, you're truly a role model for all of us. I heartily welcome you, ma'am. Now, we will start with our panel discussion, and the panelists are the dignitaries who are introduced just now, and panel will be moderated by Dr. Roxana Marinescu. I now request our luminary guest, Professor Roxana Marinescu, to introduce the theme of the conference and initiate the plenary session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. A very warm thank you to the conference organizers for their very generous invitation to moderate this panel and for the very beautiful words they said about all the panelists, including myself, the moderator of this session. I will do a very brief introduction of the theme, and then we will proceed with the panel. Of course, we all know the theme, which is the COVID-19 pandemic through a gender lens. Let me just remind you how this has put a strain on the economic, social, educational, cultural systems globally, and forced politicians and administrators to immediately deal with the given situation, either by making use of the infrastructure in place or indeed by creating new state policies, institutional instruments, or individual tools. At the same time, the members of the community had to respond to this challenging professional situation while also coping with individual personal strains amplified by the pandemic. Unsurprisingly, as literature and life show, the ones who have had to balance these aspects the most were women, and the consequences are yet to be analyzed. As patriarchal professional systems value traditionally masculine characteristics, such as competition, full-time participation, 24/7 job availability, women found it extremely difficult to simultaneously combine these with their expected gender role in the private sphere as carers for the extended family, children, member of the larger community. Therefore, COVID-19 pandemic deepened the pre-existent gender gap in society throughout the world, with women and especially working class, rural, less formally educated, migrant, of certain ethnic or racial minorities or LGBTQI+, in one word, the vulnerable ones suffering the most. According to a UN policy brief also mentioned earlier by Dr. Pam Rajput on the situation of women in terms of the COVID-19 pandemic, the situation of women deteriorated throughout the world economically due to high employment in the informal economy of women, the disproportionate effects of the pandemic on women due to cuts and layoffs. In health, women are at higher risk due to occupational sex segregation, with a higher impact on sexual and reproductive health and maternal mortality and morbidity. In unpaid care work, with a main burden falling upon women, with hospitals and health centers closing down or focusing on a pandemic response, schools closing and children being homeschooled by women mostly. Care burdens for COVID ill people in the extended families also carried by women especially. Also regarding gender-based violence, especially domestic violence. So in this plenary panel discussion, we would like to examine different aspects of the COVID pandemic in its gender dimension in the present day context, in what we hope to be a fruitful exchange of ideas and experiences in different countries around the world. So first of all, I would like to invite our first speaker, Dr. Sanjita Desai, to present her paper on gender and socialization, gender norms and the COVID-19 pandemic. And you have 10 minutes to do this. I will, well, allow 10 minutes as the organizers suggested, 10 minutes to each of the presenters. And then we will have a questions and answers session. Can I please ask you to allow me to remind you of the time, maybe 2 minutes before the end? Is that all right for all the panelists? All right. So the first speaker, Dr. Sanjita Desai, the floor is yours.
Ma'am, you are not audible. Sangeeta, ma'am.
Please unmute.
Yeah, I have unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Okay. First and foremost, let me express my gratitude to the Women Development Cell of KES, B.K. Shroff College of Arts and M.H. Shroff College of Commerce, the Beti Bachao Abhiyan of Shivaji University, and of course MAVIM for organizing this one-day conference. Definitely honored to be with the eminent personalities, panelists, Professor 𝗵𝗲𝗍𝗿𝗍𝗔 𝗔𝗓𝗀 and so good to see you, Professor Habeen Roxana, once again. Pam Rajput's concluded remarks in the previous session, where she was talking about a gender just society, and I'm going to just take it from there. A society that can reach its zenith when all the citizens get to realize their full potential or have equal opportunities and resources. So a gender just society is not just when there is no discrimination or where there is a law and order or where there is inclusiveness. Yes, of course, I mean, all these things are necessary. But a gender just society is also when all genders are equally well integrated in the society and share a harmonious relationship, a respectful relationship with each other on an equal footing. In most contexts, when we talk about gender norms, and they are framed in primary terms, and they erase the non-binary or the fluid identities. Gender norms often reflect and mostly reinforce the unequal gender relations, and which is usually to the disadvantage of the women and girls, but also to the boys and men who do not conform to these patterns. So what has the pandemic done? It has brought into focus the pre-existing inequalities. And these pre-existing inequalities shape how people of all genders experience this crisis, including the current pandemic. And this doesn't depend just on the gender, but also the racialization, sexuality, disability, age, socioeconomic capital, region, as well as the caste and religion and ethnicity that one belongs to. So the COVID-19 pandemic has laid bare the inequalities not just between and within countries, but the fragility of rights, which many assume cannot be reversed. The gender norms which reflect and mirror the progress in gendered human rights have regressed in many settings, and I'm going to restrict myself to the Indian context. Given the Indian context, it has impacted everyone, but for today's discussion, I'm going to limit it to adolescent girl, senior citizens, especially senior older women, also the sexual minorities, people with disabilities, women entrepreneurs, homemakers. So beginning with adolescent girls, and I think Pam Rajput has already covered that. But prior to the pandemic in India, there has been a steady growth or steady improvement in the percentage of women getting enrolled in primary and secondary education, which is a good sign for gender equality or gender parity between genders. But with schools and colleges being closed in most parts of the country, and the mode of education which is shifted to online, but this is not the case in the tier 2 or tier 3 or the rural areas. So digital access and digital literacy determine the access to education, and girls do have an unfair position when it comes to digital access. And when girls' education gets impacted, it has a generational impact, because going to schools is sometimes the only time when she gets relief from her household duties, or schools is the only time when where she can access safe sanitation facilities. So with girls' residential schools closed, the chances of dropping out of the girls from schools becomes high, and that definitely has an impact on the marriageable age of the girls. Boys have also got impacted because there is now more pressure to be the breadwinner of the family. The second point, I'm going to come to the senior citizens living alone in urban areas, and especially the elder women who have been staying away from because their children are in foreign countries or outside India. And in this pandemic, they had a harrowing time, and we have just completed a small qualitative study in the urban areas, and some of the findings I would just like to share. One was definitely because the caretakers were not available, the cooks were not available, and the domestic labor was not available. So it increased their burden and caused physical strain on them. Second, because there were family physicians were not available during the pandemic, they could not access healthcare facilities, or even if the hospitals were open, with the fear of contracting COVID, they did not step out of the house. Third, because of a lack of digital knowledge, in spite of possessing the very modern gadgets that they had, which their children had probably gifted them, they couldn't use those gadgets. They couldn't use those gadgets even for ordering groceries or for ordering food or even for registering themselves on the COVID app, and they were feeling very helpless. Fourth, people, the women who were domestic burden also, and because of the strong gender norms which are entrenched in the society, they couldn't ask for help from their spouses also. The older women couldn't help ask for, so that prevented them from asking for help. Fifth was the limited knowledge of financial transaction, and because of that, they couldn't even pay a small utility bill. So digital literacy, which was rightly pointed out, and the financial literacy needs to be, stepped up, especially in the older women. One of Also, apart from that, a complete absence of social connect and collapse of the support system impacted both their physical as well as the mental well-being. And one of the elder respondents of the study pointed out that because of the temples being closed, it has impacted her. And so, on probing further, we asked, how does the closure of a religious site impacts you? And they said that she said that she was not going to the temple to offer her prayers or to practice her religious faith. She would go to the temple to perform, to meet fellow singers who would perform bhajans, like devotional songs of God. So things like these have not been studied during the pandemic. Religious sites like temples are just not places of worship, but they are places to socialize and bond with friends and people of the same hobbies. Third thing is, prior to the pandemic, there was already shrinking of the job market, and unemployment and underemployment worsened during the situation. The small women entrepreneurs who had taken loans through either self-help groups or the joint liability groups for banks had a tough time repaying the loans. Although MAVIM definitely has done an excellent work in doing digital lending or probably digital collection of loans, but that was not the case in the entire country. So it was difficult to repay loans, and because businesses were shut without skills and jobs, the women were pushed in further precarious situation. And they sometimes,
just to remind you that there are 2 minutes.
2 minutes left. Okay. And they further borrowed money from money lenders, informal money lenders, and which again set it into a debt trap. So there is a entire work which would have been done by the self-help groups. Probably it has got little bit set back. Coming to homemakers, we know that she had to cater to the in-season demands of the family members who were constantly needed to be fed and taken care of. But apart from that, the little privacy and the space that the homemaker used to get with family members completely surrounded by her 24/7, that little space privacy, that also she lost during the pandemic. Definitely about when we talk about the gender-based violence and the calls that got registered in the pandemic to the helplines of women and children who suffered from gender-based violence, definitely proves the points that during the pandemic or during any crisis, the girls and the vulnerable groups are suffer the most. Other point about the pandemic, and it has been the focus of attention of the medical fraternity, is to curtail the pandemic. It has been the health agenda of all the frontline health workers, and ASHA workers we know became COVID warriors. And in the midst of this, the sexual and the reproductive health needs of women and girls got sidelined, And when medical resources get diverted and access to healthcare gets restricted, it leads to high maternal mortality rate and pregnancy complication and unsafe abortions. So the gynecologists in Mumbai after the first lockdown have mentioned that there has been a rise in the unwanted pregnancies as well as abortions due to the limited access to reproductive health. I'm just going to talk about two more categories here. One is about the disabilities, people with disabilities. And one of the issue is that first anyway is the access to everything, access to health, access to food. But when the world has moved to a digital world, it is a more ableist lens, whereas it really the disabled do not or cannot or have limitations in accessing the digital world. So that is the neglected and the forgotten report of Nidhi Goyal actually highlights the plight of the disabled people, and especially the way in which the inaccessible digital spaces hamper independent living, making it difficult for people with disabilities to order food or access even the COVID main applications. And second is the shadow pandemic. Especially women with disabilities have also suffered a lot of domestic abuse because they had no escape routes and there were fewer complaint mechanisms to address to. And the last category is on the sexual minorities. And again, the experiences vary as per the socio-economic factors at play and various other factors at play. But Neil Gupta of Ashoka University has stated that against a popular perception that the pandemic has been a great equalizer, he says that COVID-19 has made clear the differential vulnerabilities of the population, and it is stifling for people from the queer community to stay locked inside their homes, especially for those who have to face regular stigmatization and discrimination from family members and factors that often take a toll on one's mental health. So community which is already excluded has got further excluded.
So, Dr. Desai, can I ask you to draw the conclusion?
Yeah. So, while the brunt has been faced by the entire community, the gender norms in certain cases have got further entrenched, and in some cases have been either questioned, challenged, and reset. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will proceed. We will listen to all the panelists, and we will do the questions and answers at the end, as I said. So our next panelist is, sorry? I thought somebody wanted to. No, ma'am, nothing. Okay. The next panelist is Dr. Vibhuti Patel, and she's going to talk about paid and unpaid work. So women and work.
International.
All right. Can you unmute yourself, please, Vibhuti? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I share my PPT?
Yes, ma'am.
Possible?
Can.
Yeah, so
yes, yes, absolutely.
Time because there are, okay. So share screen.
Devang sir, can we do it now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Is it visible?
Yes,
ma'am. It is visible.
Full screen. Is it visible? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Now it is visible.
So I think
you have to. Now it is visible, ma'am.
Yeah. So. Thank you, Roxana. I think in the morning also speeches by Dr. Shirke, Dr. Lady Bhushan, and Dr. Pam Rajput and Madam Jyoti Thakre, they have also highlighted the economic aspects and how COVID-19 pandemic impacted economic sphere. So I think first important thing that I would like to highlight, not only for India, though the declining work participation of women, even globally the data shows that 40% of women who have lost out from their from the workforce due to pandemic in 191 countries, 40% of them have not been re-employed. So the care work has taken up. So unpaid work of women have increased while the labor, and this India scenario, I think India has gone down in the World Economic Forum gender parity index, 28 point down, mainly because of massive loss in work participation, and the CMI data shows that it has gone up to 17%. Another very important thing that came out is also that global economy as well as in Indian economy, only 6% of the workforce is in the formal sector, which gets the protection of labor laws and also the covenant by ILO of a decent work, which was floated in 2019. They fit into that category. But even these people, the women in this category, also had to do multitasking, as Dr. Sangeeta, my previous speaker, said, that doing housework, childcare, homeschooling, office work without any kind of support, that was very important. Now, coming to the major chunk of the world economy, that is a informal sector, they suffered the most, whether in Africa, Latin America, Asian countries, all of them are showing the same pattern has emerged, that these are the section which has lost out on their job, which has lost out on food security, livelihood base, and there is no kind of a support. And most of them have to depend on the community kitchens started either by the state, like Bombay Municipal Corporation, MAVIM, all of them started community kitchens, and there are others who had to support on the ration distributed by NGOs and civil society organizations. Nearly 85% of the domestic workers, and I think that was a very important international webinar yesterday, roundtable, where women workers themselves, women leaders of various countries, they were together, and they say the same pattern is there, that 85% of them did not get their wages throughout the lockdown period. They're employed because they were in informal sector, no, employers did not give them. On the top of it, they have to massive domestic, unpaid domestic work, which they had to do, and the UN has also acknowledged it, and they have said that the major chunk of the unpaid care work is taken care of by the women, and because of the gender norms, men did mostly shopping or playing with the children. Coming to the global healthcare force, like if we see the frontline workers, globally also 70% of the frontline workers have been women. In our country, if we see, it is not only women, doctors, nurses, and village health workers, and auxiliary nurses and midwives, but also school teachers who were distributing ration, and also the ASHA workers, as you said, National Rural Health Mission, National Urban Health Mission. So it's a massive, the frontline work and working under hazardous circumstances, because nowhere you see women frontline workers working, getting PPE. They are making their own what you call, they were covering with their dupatta or a scarf, or and they did not have any other protection. In many countries in Asia and Africa, we also saw a very, very heartbreaking scenario of reverse migration. If you take India, like we have more than 14 crore, according to official data, we have 140 million migrant workers. Most of the cities have 60% migrant workers. And this kind of a heartbreaking scenario, like India has a parliamentary democracy, we have a freedom of press. So all these things were available on print media and social media. But I think in several countries, our friends are saying that a similar situation happened, because the urban centers, when the lockdown happened, people had to go back to the native place for support, because they had no money to pay rent, and they did of the house, and they had no support to livelihood. And while migrating, so many mishaps happened. Women faced added responsibility. Even when the community kitchens were started, these migrant workers, wherever they were doing a lot of unpaid work. And as you can see, women were the ones who who got involved in the work. So even in the midst of crisis, they were doing. Here comes the limitation of the legal support that we have for the workforce, because ILO covenant is accepted, but you know that even within the United Nations, ILO is a stepchild. At least after 1990 globalization, the neoliberal logic, ILO has become a stepchild, and all these covenants have remained just platitude. None of the nation states have provided the social security and social protection. India also came up with the 4 labor codes, which are extremely devastating for women in the workforce. None of them talk about women. Most of them, the whole discourse is around he, him, and his, and women are mentioned, not even mentioned. Sexual harassment of at workplace is also not mentioned in this labor code, whether these codes are on wages or safety or social security or industrial relations. Only when it comes to maternity benefit, women are mentioned, and that too because India has a relatively very high maternal mortality rate, even more than that in African countries. So the question of gender pay gap, sexual harassment at workplace, erosion of labor standards, occupational health and safety, especially for the corona warriors and the frontline workers, hire and fire policy currently completely favored for employers. Most of the foreign direct investment, foreign institutional investment in the developing countries, all of them have a caveat that in favor of transnational companies and multinational companies. They can use any form of whether slave labor or bonded labor. We have seen even within lockdown, so many strikes and collective actions have taken place. Invisibilization of women worker, no registration of women worker in the informal sector. So it is in this context that globally, even the UN Women is demanding visibility of gender disaggregated data in all statistics and indicators. Coming to the agrarian scenario, I think agriculture, women in agriculture, though FAO has declared that future of food security and food sovereignty rests with women agriculture workers, but women both as farmers and agriculture workers, they are facing massive discrimination. Several countries have come up with the extremely draconian farm laws. So has India. Farmers in India are struggling. Luckily for us, Maharashtra state has not adopted. Several state governments have also rebelled against it. And now the new organization of women, it's an international organization also of women farmers, and within India also it's very active, called MAVIM. They have also come up with their charter. And these women are asking, why, when 30% of the women workforce is in agriculture, when 73% of the rural women are doing agriculture work, but only 12% or 12.8% women have land titles, and only out of which 7% have actual decision-making power. So where are we? Where we are there only to do the drudgery, and even the contribution of their work is 30% of the GDP comes from the women farmers' contribution. So it is in this context that the women's movement and gender economists have demanded that massive affirmative action needs to be taken. When it comes to the tribal women, they are the ones who are providing, like 11% of the workforce is in the tribal area, and they are doing the forest collection of forest produce. They have also suffered a lot due to pandemic. And the question of response of the corporate world, out of Fortune 500 companies, only 2 companies declared, Swiggy and Tata Steel, that their women will not be thrown out if they take leave due to illness in the family, and they would be given special leave without any cut. But otherwise, we have seen that the employers, the labor
just to remind you that there are
2 minutes.
2 minutes left.
Yeah. So the employers, the labor market has been extremely harsh. The segmented labor market, socially constructed labor market has been extremely harsh with women, with all the intersectional marginalities of caste, class, race, religion, and location. The first time, as Dr. 𝗏 told us, that India has come out with the TUS, time use survey. Here also you can see in this bar chart that women are doing 10 times more unpaid care work as compared to men in our country. So it is in this context that women's movement globally has demanded that we need to redistribute work, care work. That means we have to change the gender norm, as Dr. Sangeeta told us, the gender norms that it is care is only women's responsibility, housework is only women's responsibility. I think that has to go. Second was recognition of care work in the systems of national account. Some political parties have talked of wages of housework, which was a demand some 40 years back in the women's movement, but it's an aspirational demand. Another thing is reduce the care work, especially the hazardous care work or sanitation work, which is taking with the help of technology. Representation of care work and rewarding care work is also very important. Another thing is that Sangeeta ji mentioned that about the reproductive health concern of women, and women workers have faced even more, especially right from non-availability of sanitary pads to the question of pregnant women. So many women even died while migrating. They were in labor, and they also died while in the reverse migration process. Currently, we don't even have data of maternal mortality and child mortality that happened during lockdown. The massive starvation and loss that farm women and forest women have faced, I think that has caught the attention of gender economists, small-scale fisheries, women in handloom sector, which was already on decline globally as well as in India. I think there also massive intervention is required there. And women-headed household managed by single, divorced, deserted, and women facing long-term migration, they need special attention. As an economist, we would like to say that don't make hue and cry about economy is closed. Everyone is cooking, cleaning, taking care of their loved ones. It is just not valued by the economists because it is unpaid work. So with this kind of economic scenario, as Dr. Sangeeta said, the shadow pandemic of gender-based violence in the form of forced marriages and forced child marriages and forced child labor that has happened. Dr. 𝗏𝗵 Rajput also talked about it. And it is that's why the creating women's community, even the platform-based economy is also extremely harsh. You know, the massive currently 50% of the platform-based workers are facing COVID virus. For last 14 months, they have been doing work in the field. So it is in this context that the organization like Bachao, where Sangeeta ji is a consultant, they are doing the assessment, the need assessment of the people. We need to make special intervention in the area of safety or waters and labor helpline, which is exclusively dedicated to the workplace issues, whether it is about non-payment of wages or harassment. And also we as economics and macroeconomic policies has to focus on fiscal expansion, direct cash support,
Dr. Patel,
labor standards.
Can you draw the okay? You are the conclusions. Thank you.
These are the references, and all of the studies rapid assessment studies have been done during the pandemic.
Thank you very much. Just to inform the audience that they can ask their questions in the chat box, please. I forgot to mention that at the very beginning. So please, if you're thinking of questions while the panelists are delivering their speeches, please address them in the chat box and I will pick them up from there. Okay, our next panelist is Dr. Chintra Sinha, and she will deal with women and the legal terrain.
Hello, everyone. Am I audible? Yeah?
Yes, yes.
Bombay is actually my city of joy. This is where I grew up, I studied. So it is nice to be back in Bombay. I don't miss any opportunity to visit the city, even though now virtually, it is an honor. I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me in this conference. I truly feel privileged for that. And special thanks to Vaishali, who was always available, and for her seamless coordination. It is nice to be with Dr. Vibhuti Patel, my old-time colleague, friend, teacher, and one in many roles. And dear friends, thank you, Professor Roxana. Nice to meet you online. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Coming to my topic, as we know that in this 1.5 years into the pandemic, our collective understanding of its impact is getting clearer. In this context of legal challenges faced by women during the pandemic, we notice that first, the pandemic has led to increased gender inequality, to be in terms of loss of earnings, loss of control over assets or participation in decision-making process. Gender inequality increased during this pandemic, undoubtedly. At the same time, it is also reasonably clear that in the countries with robust legal framework, women fared significantly better in every indicator of gender inequality. According to Women, Business and Law Index of the World Bank published in 2021, on average, women have achieved 3/4 of the legal rights afforded to men. The progress in gender equality in the eyes of law is uneven across the countries. Countries like Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, and Sweden recorded a perfect gender equality as per law though. India, on the other hand, stood at 74 out of 100 in the index. The Middle Eastern countries showed maximum progress in recent times. I am in a kind of situation, I would say I'm fortunate to work in 3 countries that are significantly different in terms of legal equality for women: Sweden, Bahrain, and India. And I would like to mention a few aspects of legal reforms in each of these countries to highlight the diversity of challenges faced and the different policy approaches needed to tackle them. Firstly, Sweden, on top of the World Bank scale for several decades, Sweden embodies what an egalitarian society with good social safety net should be. As citizens, the uncertainties of life is absorbed by the welfare state. Laws demonstrate a very high level of gender equality. Perhaps the most striking example is how the Swedish state helps women in her employment and to overcome the burden of parenthood. Swedish citizens enjoy 480 days of paid parental leave, in addition to 98 days of maternity leave. At least 2 months of leave must be availed by each parent. And this is complemented by flexible work hours, government-run creches, and emphasis on mental health of workforce. During the pandemic, the Swedish state did not shut down schools, not to adversely affect women workforce participation. But that does not mean there is no problem there, like intimate partner violence have increased, and there are several other issues the country is fighting, question of elderly health and healthcare homes, and many other things are there which is posing problem. Bahrain, on the other hand, the participation of Bahraini women in the workforce increased significantly over the last 2 decades. Those who don't know about Bahrain, Bahrain is a tiny desert island in the Middle East. It has a small population of only 1.5 million people. So, and supported by state initiatives enabling legislations, growing educational opportunities and political reforms initiated by King Hamad bin Isa Al Khalifa in 2002 contributed a marked increase in female participation in Bahraini workforce. At the institutional level, empowerment of women was pursued by the state-run Supreme Council of Women, which took several initiatives to further women's empowerment in education, workforce participation, legal equality, and social awareness. Since 2020, for instance, Bahrain gave loan waivers to women, sanctioned business and educational loans to women. Women can have online business with zero investment, say in baking or maybe education, training, any kind of business that they want to do. And these kind of facilities were given. Also, interestingly, they introduced gender equality in access to finance, extended pension reforms, and removed several work restrictions on women workers. Recently, last month, they introduced a set of law to give women more equal position in private sector, so on and so forth. And in India, like, Vibhuti has spoken, Dr. Sangeeta has spoken, so I will just say that finally in India, where I grew up and received my education, substantial progress have been made in achieving gender equality in law, beginning with the enactment of Hindu Code Bill in the 1950s, which is my specialization area of work, followed by several landmark legislations. However, gender gap still remains in unequal pay, unequal opportunity in education and at work, and unequal burden of parenthood, household work, social expectations, and access to resources. Now, to find a road ahead, I would say that looking from historical lens, laws designed to empower women normally emerge from a sequence of events broadly divided into 3 phases. In the first phase, the need to reform is articulated by the civil society. The articulations proceed towards a discourse on a necessity of legal reform. In the second phase, the process of converting the social need into enacted law begins, and law is enacted. In the final phase, laws are put into practice. In this phase, this phase of legal implementation, the ultimate success of legal reform depends on its percolation into social consciousness. The state machinery is well equipped to deliver the law, and the society accepts the law. The implementation is efficient. Looking at the three countries discussed, it is clear that policy interventions will differ considerably. Diverse situations of these countries will lead to diverse post-pandemic challenges. Sweden will not need new law, but must ensure efficient implementation of law to prevent gender injustices. This requires a good administration, police system, resources of legal awareness, and a gender-sensitive culture at workplace. For Bahrain as well as India, the challenges are much wider, covering awareness, visibility, representation, persuasion, legal reform, and implementation. An adequate response requires informed as well as inclusive action, I feel. In the first phase, actions will revolve around identifying the problems and making it visible. For this,
Dr. Sinha, just to remind you that there are 2 minutes left.
Okay. For this, a strong role of women's organization will be necessary. The state will support collective action by civil society at the grassroots level. Agents such as informal sector workers, community-based paralegals, public interest lawyers, human rights activists, and other community leaders must be encouraged to highlight the gender discrimination. At the same time, promoting transparency through data will be needed for implementing evidence-based policies for purpose of informed decision-making. This will prevent what Patricia Hill Collins and Miranda Fricker called epistemic injustice. During the second phase of where laws are enacted, the challenges is continuing the legal reform during the pandemic. For this, effort should be made to continue parliamentary business-related and to repealing discriminatory laws. Social action can propel the politicians to act. In the final phase of implementation of law should be proactive. State intervention will include, firstly, providing legal aid to women, weaker sections to make justice accessible. Such services should be advertised extensively to prevent and respond to intimate partner violence. Innovative social media platforms may supplement traditional effort of raising awareness. Speedier delivery of justice should be attempted by the family courts. For this to be effective, increased women's participation in the justice sector may shape the justice for all agenda. Moreover, the state should carefully weigh the necessity of law enforcement through arrests and detention of women activists. In these times of unprecedented challenges, we need informed and sensitive policy actions to avoid harming women's rights and lives irreparably. And also conferences like this are important because this brings into fore the issues and policy choices to be tackled and the framework within which the analysis should be done and one can address them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sinha. So we already have questions. Please remember to address them in the chat box. Our next panelist is Dr. Mariam Siddharth-Khan, who's going to talk about women's health and wellness. So I'm inviting you to give us your thoughts on the issue.
Any issue, Mariam ma'am?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear. Thank you. Thank you firstly for the opportunity and quite excited to be here. excellent presentations from colleagues so far, and lots of food for thought. So today I'm going to be talking about stress and mental health implications of COVID-19. I want to start off with a short 𝗖𝗎𝗄𝗧 tale. Okay, and I began this presentation looking at the question of the debate around asking Big Pharma to share their COVID vaccine formulations to save lives. And this led me to a story, a Taoist philosophy about a Chinese farmer who lived 2,000 years ago. Many of us will know it. So he receives a horse and the horse runs away. The neighbor says to him, "That's bad news." The farmer replies, "Good news or bad news, who can say?" The horse comes back and brings other horses with him. Good news, you might say. The farmer gives the second horse to his son to ride, who rides it. Unfortunately, he's thrown by the horse and his legs break and he's hurt. So the neighbor comes along and says, "That's bad news." The farmer says, "Well, good news, bad news, who knows?" In a week or so, the emperor's men arrive and take every able-bodied male to fight in war. The farmer's son is spared because of his broken limbs. The neighbor comes across again and says, "That's great news, of course." So he says, "Well, good news, bad news, who knows?" Now, it's easy to understand why the ancient story of the Chinese farmer resonates with us in times of crisis. We're experiencing unprecedented times. So the message behind the story is an emphasis on peace, humanity, detachment, receptiveness, okay? It reminds people that everything that happens occurs based on our actions and our reactions. So even something that seems dark and confounding can turn out to be a lesson, okay? The story resonates strongly with all of us, particularly with countries like India, South Africa, and the developing world, the global South, okay? So while we're currently surrounded by news of death, loss, and pain, we have to interrogate, as social scientists, the experience to expose our fractured humanity for future generations and why it occurs. Now, why do we have to do this? Research shows us that this is not the first pandemic and it will not be the last pandemic. We will face a series of these types of pandemics over the years. In doing that, I consider a biopsychosocial model. I think interdisciplinary engagement is critical at this stage. Looking at the medical component, the pharmacology, psychology, the clinical sociology, and the neuroscience. Now, using that interdisciplinary approach, a focus on existential confidence, okay? Now, what existential confidence does is it acknowledges the assessment of our context, of what's going on around us everywhere, then accepts it as it is without any shoulds or coulds. Then we switch our attention to commitments and future vision. We make adjustments and take action. So the confidence that life still has meaning and hope and promise for the future, without which we would not have progress. So as leaders, as countries, as academics, we are reactive when a problem arises. And when we cannot address the problem, we start seeing the emergence of mental health challenges, particularly among women. Now, a lot of you will remember from your studies coming across Heidegger, a philosopher, Martin Heidegger, and he says, being is an individual, is an undivided state in which subject, object, consciousness, and the world are one. When you are not separate from the world, then there is no subject or object. But when you are being this way, you can peacefully design the right actions to take. So my objective today is to bring this philosophy along with existential confidence and the biopsychosocial model together. And how does that present for women? Why are there increased levels of depression, anxiety, increased suicide, burnout, role overload, domestic violence? Okay, so this is because of, we often speak about the triple oppression imposed on women, the labor market and then the domestic market. But now this has multiplied tenfold, with women now becoming teachers, full-time housekeepers, educators. So if we draw on the existential confidence, we draw on innate emotions that we are capable of handling, right? So the eventuality of COVID-19, not irrationally optimistic about the future, we prepare for the pandemics. So while we face the challenges of a patriarchal society, and COVID-19 has exposed these, has unearthed all of these fractures, whether you are a professor at a university or in a familial home, it doesn't matter where your context is. So this existential confidence has forced us to start considering preparation for future pandemics. It has taught us so much. I hate the concept of the new normal that people so easily use, but this has become a normality. I have never traveled across so many nations in a short space of time, between the US, Canada, Malaysia, and Philippines, all in a week's work, engaging with colleagues. So is that beneficial? We've increased our virtual and online engagement, but that too is a problem. So when do these mental health, what are these drivers? What are these drivers that affect you and I? So earlier on in the conference, I heard a little child speaking to her, not sure it was a young boy or girl, speaking to their parent. And that is something that would have caused a great deal of anxiety for the person whose child we heard, but it shouldn't, because
just to remind you that there are 2 minutes left.
Oh no. Okay, so we have the drivers include fear and uncertainty, isolation, and with social distancing and with social isolation, we have neurochemical changes, hormonal changes, and cognitive delays, because children, human beings develop, our brains grow. We have based on muscular neuro connections. So these mental health drivers, the lack of contact, the economic insecurity, the food insecurity, the dispossession, and the constant death. I sit here today, having just received news a few hours ago of a very close friend and community activist who passed on. But we become numb to death. So the celebration of birth, milestones, mourning, these we know are maintained in society to create and promote social order. And that has been taken away from us. So the digital divide, okay? Now, the digital divide only is evident every day in terms of what we have access to. How many laptops or computers, the software, the hardware, the cost implications, the data, the technological skills, you know, to make sure that your camera is off when you're sitting in a meeting still in your PJs and you haven't brushed your hair because you're exhausted from the role overload. So then the concern around access to public or private healthcare, we saw this in India, and it broke us as a global community. The disparity between between the North and the South, where the South is supplying vaccines to the North, yet the people in the South are dying. So COVID has led to a sedentary lifestyle, which is also a great trigger for mental health challenges. Our stigmatization of mental health and labor, the impact it has had on maybe professors or academics can work virtually. What about unskilled laborers that work in factories or mass-produced items? Livelihoods are compromised. Social grants are largely recipients are women, and they are insufficient, they're poorly calculated. The number of women experiencing role overload, burnout as a result of administrative imposition on them in their professional categories is unprecedented, preventing promotion and advancement. 2 more slides. COVID, the disability. And then we fail to consider women who are caring for children with disabilities or family members with disability, who have a less robust understanding, social anxiety, confusion, but there are some positive impact. And I'm just going to say briefly, children with issues around anxiety and depression have literally, you know, outperformed neurotypicals. So what are the lessons going forward? Prevention, preparedness, the gap between the North and the South, the scientific research, and the sustainable development. Thank you. Apologies if I took extra time.
Thank you very much. It was fine. Yes, so we're proceeding to the questions and answers section, and the organizers gave us 10 minutes for these. So here we go. Without further ado, the first question which we received is addressed to Professor Vibhuti Patel, and it's to enhance our understanding about the future strategies for livelihood promotion for women, especially in rural area and also with respect to self-groups. And also there is, further on, there is another question regarding farm laws. I'm also thinking it's addressed to you, although I'm not very sure. So maybe you can connect those two. Thank you.
Yeah, for the rural women, the most important thing currently is fuel, fodder, water, animal care, livelihood, and also the kitchen gardening and the food security, food sovereignty, because currently the focus is most on the urban area. So I think the kind of work which MAVIM does, I think it needs to be amplified. And also what we need currently is a massive, robust rural health infrastructure, because we just don't have. So creation of using the government expenditure, because that is the recommendation of World Health Organization that nation states should allocate 10% of GDP to public health. So I think that currently it is only 1.2%. So I think that is very important, and that will also generate employment. and also women's employment, and also the last mile connectivity, because the major dropout of girls from the from education is mainly because of this synchronized and asynchronized mode of education. So I think last mile connectivity, to see to it that there is no generational inequality, whatever we have fought for 150 years for women's education, right from 19th century social reform movement. So let us not turn the wheels of history in a backward direction. Another thing is that rural enterprise, craft-based economy, rural enterprise, handicraft, I think that we have a very long legacy in developing countries, so it is very important. And direct support to SHG, don't leave them at the financial sharks. My private microfinance institution, Dr. Sangeeta has done a PhD on that. They are extremely brutal, they are extremely cruel. The women in SHGs are committing suicide because of the way they're bouncers. They are known as a recovery agent. I would call them bouncers. The way the nefarious activities, we should not. State and all the government banks should directly support the SHGs. A second question is that of the farm law. See, farm law, we must understand that women, the women don't have forward and backward linkages. They don't have technology. They don't have smartphone. They don't have even women farmers. The land holding, they are basically marginal farmers and poor peasants. Hardly maximum 2 acres of land they have. So there, the whole market, whether it's a labor market, factor market, product market, all are totally patriarchal. And it is in this situation, you leave everything to the vagaries of market, where then women are going to lose out. What we need is affirmative action, like minimum support price, first of all, recognition of women as farmers, which is also not there. Kisan card is given to, the farmer's card is given to male farmers. There is a Jodi system, that is a couple system. In that couple system, who is the farmer? Only man is considered as a farmer, woman is not even considered it. So legal existence of women as farmers and the state support are very, very important. Otherwise, they have to sell their product at a below cost level, and that is the reason for the farmers' suicide. Even women farmers have committed suicide, which is not even reported legally. It is only said they died due to starvation, or died due to, say, depression, or died due to, they don't even write that it is because of the farm crisis women are committing suicide. It's very important to do the hand-holding of women farmers.
Thank you. So I'm thinking that maybe Dr. Sinha also has some comments on that, on perhaps on these laws concerning farmers, if she's still listening to us. No? All right, then maybe we can move on to the next question, which was also addressed to Dr. Patel, but I'm thinking that maybe the other panelists will have something to say about that, because it reflects an intersectional concern, and that's about the caste lens.
Yeah, I think caste lens in my presentation has come thrice. One, in the context of informal sector, Dr. Pam Rajput already quoted my paper, so I did not repeat it, that majority of informal sector workers belong to other backward caste and scheduled caste. Okay, so there also caste comes in. And second one is sanitary worker. All the frontline workers, most of them happen to be from the lower caste, and they are supposed to be in the, according to the caste system, they are going to be they are doing polluted work, and that's why further stigmatization they face. And the third, this thing comes out of the reproductive health concern also. In that also, the frontline workers are mostly from the lower caste, and they face tremendous stigmatization in the neighborhood and community, and also in the work front, because they are at the bottom of the economic hierarchy. Thank you.
Yes. Are there any other comments from the other panelists regarding the caste lens, maybe? So, and from different perspectives, like maybe the mental health, or any other comments, maybe the legal issues,
the gender norms.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with mental health, there are definitely, evidence shows there are definitely intersections with socioeconomic status, with regard to knowledge of mental health, stigmatization and deniability, and access or willingness to access treatment plans for whether it's women or children or whoever might be experiencing manifestations of mental health challenges under COVID-19, simply by isolation,
Yes. Yes, thank you. Dr. Desai?
Yeah, I'll just add to the point which Vibhuti ma'am has just mentioned about the sanitation workers. Especially the sanitation workers form at the bottom of the pyramid of the hierarchy of labor. And even during the pandemic, in the housing societies, the domestic cook or maids were not asked to come, but the sanitation workers who were cleaning, swabbing the societies, they were the ones who were coming, and they were without any PPE kit or without any further protection. So they were the ones who used to come even during the lockdown, and they form in the caste system, they are at the bottom of the thing. So yes,
the mortality rate is very high. There is
Yes.
All India Union of the Sanitation Workers. They have also highlighted that, which is not reported. People are just dying and they are cremated without any record.
Yes. There was another question about the lockdown and how it brought equality/inequality. I'm adding this inequality bit in a household. So would you like to comment on that, please? It was addressed to Dr. Patel, but I'm thinking, Dr. Patel, you can begin, and maybe the other
So
panelists.
I think, say, most of the rapid assessment studies have shown that it did not bring equality. In fact, it overburdened whether across the class line, whether it is a top executive or middle class service, this thing, and the informal sector workers, their burden increased of housework, cooking, cleaning, caring of the ill people, caring of elderly, and because of the lockdown, all of them were 24/7 in the house. So the demands were very high. The UN Rapid Assessment Study, UN Women Rapid Assessment Study of 191 countries says that this is there globally also, because men did only shopping and playing with children. The rest of the housework was done by that. And that's why currently the debate on the changing the gender norm, that housework is a responsibility. Don't leave it just as a personal problem. It is a problem of the state. Nation state have to ensure. And I think that is the major reason why India went down 28 count point down in the World Economic Forum Gender Parity Index, because of the massive exodus of women from the workforce, because of this new responsibility over the last 15 months.
Any other comments from?
Maybe I'll just add to it. Yeah, definitely the burden increased, and there were even campaigns which were started which says that household chores have no gender, because the kind of burden that women were facing. Secondly, why this concept that maybe it has brought gender equality? Because men were, trying to experiment in the kitchens and were trying to put some photographs in their Facebook pages that they are trying to help their spouses or their mothers, and that is an image probably which came in the social media, that men are doing the household chores, but actually it was just a few exceptions, and we cannot say that was a rule.
Thank you. We have two questions which are connected, addressed to Dr. Siddharth Khan, and they're about psychological issues and mental health. So the first one refers to educational institutions, and it says that mental health can be addressed by educational institutions as there is growing need to be addressed to council. And the other one is about psychological issues which are also concerning during this pandemic. Should there be a platform? The person makes an assessment, actually. There should come a platform without any stigma. I think people are unaware and hesitate to open up to such issues. So would you like to comment on these two mental health
yes,
questions?
So absolutely. So this is important for stakeholder partnerships in our society, because we know, particularly in the global south, we cannot rely exclusively on government services. So helplines, whether it's alcohol abuse, domestic violence, access to resources is a challenge. But in the global South context, when we have this digital divide, and we have people located and living in areas where there is no access to cell phone towers and cell phone lines, then this is a problem. And also the socioeconomic dependency or levels of poverty impede the motivation or the impetus for accessing help. And of course, the failure of the gender bodies, whether it is rape crisis, reporting of rapes, reporting of domestic violence. We know that domestic violence has increased tenfold. So with institutions, like as academics, as part of university, we have well-being centers. So you can pick up the phone, there's a hotline, we have access for our students. But that's if our students are located at our university or in urban centers where they can pick up the phone and make the call. What happens to them when their COVID-19 protocol, lockdown, residences are closed and they've returned to their homes? And of course the social distancing. So the people that are doing the care work are doing the counseling or the intervention are community-based workers or volunteers in society. And these are largely women who, increase their risk of contracting, but not only their risk, the risk of everybody else that lives in their home. So, these kinds of burdens are, for women particularly, they're harsh and they cause long-term. We are not sure of the long-term impact that COVID is going to have on any of us. But we're not doing enough. We're not doing enough because everything still remains so clinical. We don't follow the rules. We sit at our desks for 14 and 18 hours a day, which is unhealthy. But we continue to do it. And why? Because society creates these images or these models of what we as women should be, what we as academics should be producing, and how we should be doing that. And then if we fail to, if we don't do the 14 and 18-hour workday, then we fail to, we feel like we've failed. So, like with the Taoist philosophy, we have to return to human empathy, to humanity. We have to develop a sense of humanity again, where we are entering people's homes every time we have a Zoom meeting. And we have to be respectful of that. And there's very little sensitivity to those kinds of things. And we as women have to lead the process. So, some of the things that we do at our institution is we have a group of women where we have like a brown bag lunch. We get onto our laptops and, we eat, and we don't talk about work. We just talk about other stuff. Or some colleagues get together and try to do meditation. And all of this is a very significant part of how we cope and how we develop. But what about those people that can't attend the brown bag because they are academics, they live in remote areas? So we have a lot of work to do, and it starts with us. It starts by checking up on our colleagues, our neighbors, our family friends, our aging relatives, and registering. I mean, my mom is in her 70s. She's a psychologist, very competent, but, you know, she was completely flustered when she realized she had to register online for her vaccine. So, you know, we can't make assumptions. We have to have, we're not having physical contact with our loved ones, our aging parents, our friends or colleagues who have, you know, illnesses. Women are being diagnosed with breast cancer. Women are losing their spouses, and the burden is just proliferating. It's just proliferating. There is no easy solution, but if we start with ourselves and reach out, it's a beginning.
Thank you very much. This is very much the answer to all the questions that were addressed on mental health, and also some sort of conclusions, maybe to some concluding remarks to your own presentation. And I'm just very briefly opening the session to the other speakers for very brief concluding remarks, because we took quite a lot for questions and answers, quite a lot of time. So just very briefly, if you have any concluding remarks to address, starting maybe with Dr. Chitra Sinha, maybe just very briefly. You need to unmute yourself. You are on mute, Professor Sinha, so you need to unmute your mic. Thank you.
Yeah. There was some connection hitch here, so which I could fix, but then was there any question for me then which I can take now, or it's over?
It was a question regarding farm laws.
Okay. I think farm laws, meaning up to since I work on, formation of family laws, farm laws, agriculture was not part until very recently. And now I'm following the farmers' protest very keenly and feel that a lot of things should be done about the farmers, especially women farmers, those who are taking part. But I think Vibhuti is a better person to answer that question, because I'm a bit out of touch with what's going on right now.
That's all right. Yes, she has answered, yes.
Okay.
Well. Thank you.
To conclude, like when when I see my home country from a distant, it is very painful to see how India is suffering now, and we are, but then this is also an opportunity to kind of reassess in the matter of law, and maybe try and formulate a new law, as we know always has to have a vision, and it is futuristic. So, and this is the time, I feel very important time to speak truth to power. It is now not the time to we should all come together and try and assess what we need. The other day, I was reading a story, reading a report in Times of India regarding COVID widows, and there was a incident of a lady who has done her MSc in mathematics, but she was not working, but her husband dies, and he was the sole earner of the family. So, and we keep reading about children orphaned. We keep, knowing about people, those who are from the lower rung on the society and losing family members and all. And we see NGOs, civil society are stepping up to help them. But what about the state? What about the state? What are the legal protection or safety net that can be created? Law should be proactive and forward-looking. That's also, I feel. And since we are in educational institute, we are talking from an educational institute, I would like to share, though this was another time, happier times, another century, but still I would like to share my personal experience being in a temporary position in the city of Bombay. You know, I mean, when I was expecting my first child, I was working in a South Bombay college, but being the temporary nature of my job, I was not eligible for any kind of leave. So I had to resign from that job because I was advised by my doctor not to travel. But then when I tried to get back to the profession, like I was applying all over the length and breadth of the city for a job. Then in an interview, I was told that, the panel apologized, saying that, yeah, we don't have any hesitation to say that you are the right candidate, but we will feel very sorry to call a woman to work with a small child. So, but then I tried to argue that if I was already working with you, then I would have gone on maternity leave and would have come back and joined in the same position. But anyway, I mean, those who know me, as Vibhuti would know, I was not the one to leave it at there. I went to the registrar's office. I went to 𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗵𝗵 Mukherjee
Teachers Union,
and tried all kind of ways to get back to the profession. But then I felt so powerless at that point. So, I mean, I'm saying that staying in the city of Mumbai, having a PhD degree, with all required, as we want girls to be, yet I was in a position, left all by myself without any security or any legal support to fight my case. So I think this time again is showing us in very many ways that how those who are working in unorganized sector and everybody should be, provided at least legal protection. Whereas in Bahrain, I see that, there is like now Bahrain government has made a law since March last year. Pregnant women, new mothers, then they are working from home. And those who need, those who have children up to 5 years or 7 years, they are working from home since March 2020 with all their benefits restored. So, there should be a willingness from the government or the authorities to help women. So I think this is something is important. I felt to share with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other brief concluding remarks from the panelists? Or?
Yeah, just I would like to say that what emerges from the world of work is that what we need is a gender parity, and the feminist economists world over are now asking for financing for gender equality. And gender responsive budgeting is very important for that. And instead of calling women in development, now we are talking about women-led development. What we have seen in 204 countries, out of which 191 were attacked by coronavirus, and only 25 countries put people before profit. And out of these 25 countries, 18 had women leaders. So wherever women are in leadership, there is a more compassion, that care, they put people before profit, and that's why what we need is a women-led economy.
Thank you very much, because we are so much over the time limit. I will really have to conclude, so I will just say one very short sentence, that I'm very grateful to all the panelists for all their insightful presentations and for the many aspects that they brought together so that we could have the legal aspect and the economic aspect and the mental issues aspect and the intersectional aspect, which was extremely important as well. So we, out of all these points of view, I think we are all very grateful to have found out a lot about, well, their own personal experiences, but also the case studies they presented and the situations in the countries that they dealt with. So thank you very much once again. We will have to stop now because the program will proceed. And I'm not quite sure how much we went over the time limit because I'm very confused about the time difference, but never mind. I think we're doing well.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you
So
for
thank you
excellent
very much.
moderation. Yeah, you did it so well and democratically. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thank all the dignitaries for sharing their valuable knowledge and enlightening us. And Roxana ma'am, thank you especially for moderating this discussion so smoothly. This session was indeed amazing and thought-provoking. I express sincere appreciation and gratitude to all the dignitaries for their very, very active and frank discussion, which I think has made this conference very fruitful. With this, we come to the end of our panel discussion session, and now we head on to lunch break. And we'll meet again for paper presentations across all the tracks at 2 p.m. sharp. But before we disperse, let me share some important instructions for our next session, that is paper presentation session. All the paper presenters and participants kindly note, all paper presenters will get Zoom link for their respective track on their WhatsApp and Telegram group. And all the participants of the conference, please note that all the 5 Zoom links of the paper presentation tracks will be posted on your WhatsApp group. You can join the session of your choice. So kindly join us back for the valedictory session and result declaration. So we end for now.
So do we
Thank you.
do we leave and rejoin, or we just leave our computer? What do you suggest?
Ma'am, the separate link to join your respective track will be shared on your WhatsApp, ma'am. Okay. And it is shared to all the paper presenters.
Okay, so now we can leave, no?
Yes, yes, okay. Yes, ma'am.
Vaishali, kindly guide for valedictory session also regarding Zoom link.
Yes, yes. The separate link for joining the valedictory address or session will be shared on the Zoom, on your WhatsApp group as well as on the Telegram group.
So we
and it is also, yes, it is also being shared on your registered mail ID. All the participants, all the delegates, we have shared all the details on your registered mail ID.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roxana. Thank you, Mariam.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Seeing you after such a long time. Yeah.
Yes, we should meet quite.
Yes.
I'll call you.
Correct. Okay.